All right, we're live. Let's double check and make sure it's going before we get too ahead of ourselves. Here.
Right. Does it sound
Sounds great on my end.
all right? There I am.
Let's see. And we are live. That's right. We are live. So, guys, as you're coming in, if you would just shout out and let us know who you are and where you're from. I'm gonna go ahead and post this on Instagram too, real quick, just to let all the friends know.
Come on, friends.
Come on, friends, join us.
Guys, quickly before we get rolling, thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web.
Go ahead and read them out while I get
read them out. Charlotte's Web. They've been a supporter of ours forever, and they make great CBD products. Huge part of our recovery. And then, I like their stuff. And then we got.
By the way, if you go to Charlotte's Web, you use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order.
That's right.
When you order it, and again, if you guys are curious, I use a tincture at night. Sometimes I'll use the recovery gummies too. Let's see. We're gonna put this up there. What up, guys? So if you've not joined us yet, we're live now at the podcast. Me and Eugene. So if you press this little button wherever I put it and join us.
We got a bunch of people. We got some people from Wyoming. Rob Reyes.
I've never been to Wyoming.
Yeah. Rob from Toronto. Funky and Chunky says, Oi.
Oi.
Oh, where's that from?
Oi.
London, England. Awesome. All right. Mark from London. Yeah, Charles Webb, Epic Roll, Matt. We're going to hang out with him at ADCC. We're going to see him.
Yeah, we're going to be at ADCC. The championship's coming up, hanging out and watching the matches. If you guys are there, feel free to come up and say hey. But we'll be seeing our buddy Matt there. If you guys have never been to his website and you want to get some cool jiu-jitsu gear, go to his website, epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is jiu-jitsu for 15% off.
Well, shout out to Manscaped. Manscaped a little love too.
If you guys are looking for some below the belt men's grooming products, although they've got they've basically become just a men's grooming product company. They used to be sort of like niched down to like guys and their balls. And now it's guys and balls pretty much. Now it's like Jess and I were getting ready to go on a walk earlier. We try to get a couple walks in each day.
Yeah.
And we were getting ready to go to walk and she had the Manscaped shirt on for a second because it's kind of like one of her like basically sleep shirts / work from home shirts. Yeah. And so she's like, I'm going to take this off because on the back it says like something about, what does it say? Like,
we save balls, or I don't know.
It says like, it says, show me your ball, or like something about take care of your balls, show your balls or whatever. I was like, it'd be a real classy shirt for you. But if you guys want to check them out, they do make really good products. I like all their stuff that I've used. You can go to manscaped.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order, and you get free shipping with it. Just a heads up. Also, guys, we have a Patreon for the podcast. If you guys want to support the podcast, or if you guys want to join up and get the exclusive content that we have on the Patreon, you can check it out at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. And last, guys, if you guys would like to get some free ebooks and videos that I have put together for people, you can go to the link there, jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. And when you do that, you'll sign up to my email newsletter. You get an email sent to you every day, and you can unsubscribe at any time. And in turn, you will get 3 free jiu-jitsu ebooks and a video that you can dig into that have some good ideas on building a game plan, drilling, and also at-home study and training when you can't make it to the gym. So, guys, with that said, we're here. So let's take a look here and see who we have in the chat again.
Let's check out the chat. Why don't we? Oh, Jess is here. It says your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you. There we go. That's
funny.
That's my wife.
Yeah, we have some good. Yeah, you guys hold on to the questions. We'll do a Q&A towards the end. We got a couple things we want to chat about as per podcast.
Yeah. So the first thing is, the first thing really doesn't have anything to do with really anything. But I had a scare recently.
Oh, you're all right.
Yeah, because about 3 weeks ago, right? I sat down, and it was like I trained that morning, and I sat down later on this evening, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit down and have I'm gonna read a little bit, read for a little bit, hang out, and all of a sudden I got this tingly feeling, like a numbness tingly, like your arm goes to sleep. I had this tingly numbness type feeling on my left lip, my left tongue, and then it hit my left index finger. And so I'm freaking out. I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to stroke out, and some of you guys may or may not know this. It has its waves, but like anxiety is something that like I've struggled with in the past. And so sometimes I can get super anxious about stuff, like borderline anxiety attack type stuff. And so I've got to really be focused on my breathing when that happens. Cause I'm like, I know this isn't going to help anything. But, so I look at Jess, I'm like, Jess, we got to go. I was like, we got to get to the ER. And cause I think I'm stroking out. She freaks out. What does she do? She's like, okay, give me just 2 seconds. I got to feed the horse real quick. So she runs out there and like feeds the horse. Cause she's like, we're going to be in the ER all day. Luckily we really weren't there that long. But then we get to the ER, they did a 12 lead EKG in the heart. They did a CAT scan or CT scan with like the contrast dye and everything else. They did all the tests and stuff, blood work, and everything was like pretty much normal. They think it was probably like, and I had an x-ray done just the other day and there's no like narrowing in the neck.
Yeah. So your neck looks good, which is awesome for someone that does jiu-jitsu for as many years as you have. There's some, arthritic changes are kind of, well, I think some of it is what you do and some of it's genetics.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of those things, but you're usually the one choking people anyway. So
well, and also I hand fight a lot.
Yeah.
Right. I hand fight a lot, but I figured whatever, but I think it's probably, we're going to do some more investigating, but I think it's probably muscular because like I think it's muscular, probably pinched a nerve or something that created that.
Yeah. It's possible. It could just be a freak thing. It can honestly just be like a freak thing that just happened. It was like a fluke and then probably no rhyme or reason. And that's it. But like, the main thing I would say as a healthcare provider, as a healthcare practitioner or whatever, like you did the right thing, because if strokes are something we had guy on the podcast that talked about, he actually had a stroke from jiu-jitsu, and they're not terribly common, but they do occur. And like,
well, they can occur anytime you have like your blood pressure's high and you can, what did they call it? Dissect
dissection. So like you basically have like a little micro trauma and you can get like a little clot that forms. And if that clot breaks loose, obviously it can go into your brain and cause some issues. So, but like the thing is like you didn't, and I feel like I would even do this. I'd be like, I'm fine. It'll go away. Right. But you did like the right thing, because for anybody out there, like if you are feeling like, numbness, tingling, like facial drooping, any kind of speech problems, vision problems, like that could possibly be a stroke. And like the best case scenario is going to the ER and it being nothing, right? Like you're like, man, I don't want to go to the ER and then it's nothing and I waste this time. No, you went, and the best case scenario is you went and there was nothing going on, and you can go about your life, and be kind of, but if you wait, you could have some really, really bad situations happen. You could die, obviously, but you could also lose function of
well, that's what I was talking to one of the guys who works at an ER, and he was saying that like some people will sometimes like wait and like they'll have like a small stroke, and then they'll come to the doctor like 2 weeks later and they're still drooping, and they're like, bro, like we can't help you, like it's too late. It's like we can't address that problem. We could have stopped that problem if you've gotten here like immediately. Like, see, I never had any of the drooping though. See, like, because some people were asking like maybe Bell's palsy or something, but like there was no drooping, there was no nothing. But again, it was just one of those things where I'm like, I've never felt my lip go numb or my tongue. I was like, freaked me the hell out. I was like, we're just checking it out.
Yeah, so, and I did, I kind of looked at you and everything was, was good. I mean, you got the regular person that does jiu-jitsu and sits and works on the computer and stuff like that.
Although the exercise, I've been doing the exercises and doing those and incorporating those in. So
I mean, I think it's just like sometimes just basic maintenance stuff can kind of help correct and help some stuff out. So,
it wasn't Bell's palsy. It wasn't anything. It was basically, it was like some nerve or something. It was just like one of those things.
There's some funny.
What did you say, Biden? What did he say? Biden is like a blood clot to America.
We're not gonna read that. We're not getting political up in here.
I'm not getting political. It's funny. See, I don't like. I sort of don't like politicians. Period. As a I don't care like what. Like, there's very few politicians that I think are worth a damn. So they all kind of suck. Because isn't that like the best? It's like the best job, being a politician, because basically you can make all kinds of promises and then do absolutely nothing. Like you don't have to deliver on anything.
The goal is not to do anything. You're like, wait, give me 4 more years and I'm just putting things into motion.
But that's all of even the senators too. They don't do anything. Like they're all just like because like what was it? Tulsi Gabbard when she got into it, they were just told her to like keep her head down. Like basically don't do anything. But I think it's so funny. It's like you can be a politician and like regular people like us, we don't get to go and say, hey, listen, I'm going to go to this office and apply for this job, and here are my expectations. And then once I get into the job, I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to show up on Monday because I don't feel like it.
Yeah. And no, I hear you. It's just one of those things. Like, I mean, there's not really like a time crunch. Like, well, you're already in there doing stuff, and then yeah. So I'm getting a call, but anyway, so you were going to talk about something else. You're going to talk about
well, so like the only thing, because we were like talking about like stuff that like I've been like chewing on. One of the things that's been kind of like constantly floating around. One of the things that I like doing, and I do it a lot of times from like a business aspect, is I like listening to video game designers and developers talk about how they go through the process.
Okay.
Because like I think of life in general as it's a big game. Now sometimes for instance, school is it's a big game with a poorly constructed structure, right? Because it's like, you've got your big bosses that are your tests, like your big tests, midterms, and then you got your level bosses that are like your little assignments you got to turn in, but it's like a poorly constructed game. But I think a lot of it's like that because we go through these things where we have these loops of things where we get into stuff. And like, for instance, this is just one of and here's an idea. This is one of those things where I've seen this happen a lot. So for instance, I was listening to a developer talk about games, and he was talking about how you have to make a really good loop, and he called them propulsion loops for games, for people. Basically, they have to get in and have enough challenge that it's entertaining, but then they get pushed forward, right? And they overcome the challenge. And he says that a lot of times things, if they come into something and they just get smashed right out of the gate and they don't even get like a little quick win, then they're not going to keep going, right? This is why video games have a tutorial, right? Like, because in a tutorial, you'll get a few quick wins right out of the gate. So you kind of get some momentum going. Back in the day, he was talking about like, arcade games, like where you would put a quarter in. They like back in the 80s, they would try to make them to where that quarter would get you about 90 seconds worth of game time. So it was enough. That like you kept putting more money in, because, if you put it in, boom, you just died immediately. You wouldn't keep going. And so from a standpoint of like structuring a gym, I take that into account, right? Like we need beginner classes so that people can get little quick wins. We're going to stick on techniques for a really long time, not for a long time, but like 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month, because this way you'll actually get a chance to really become competent with those skills. And that's a win, right? Like we get propelled, the propulsion loop. We get propelled by the fact when we feel like we're doing something right. Or even some of the people that have competed recently, they've been able to use, like, because we've been on mount for almost 2 months now. Some of this,
that's long,
right? Well, you think about mount offense. Now we're doing defense, which then incorporates some offense. Like some of the students have competed and they've been able to use those attacks in their competition matches, right? That's another like another win, right? And so I think about it from that standpoint. But then I even think about it from like, the standpoint of the person, right? Like when I wrote an email. If you guys are on my email list, you got this one this morning. Like when I first started training jiu-jitsu, like I very much look at jiu-jitsu. It's very much like a big, almost think of it as a role-playing game. You got your character.
Yep.
And you develop skills and you get experience with your character, and you get these special abilities and stuff like that. And you battle other characters and see how they're doing. Right. And you have little quests you can go on. You have the belt quest. You can have your competition and medal quest. You've got all these little side quests you can go on. You know what I mean? And you can do your thing.
I think you're on to something. You're on to like a jiu-jitsu role-playing game, a jiu-jitsu RPG.
That'd be terrible. It just wouldn't be good, because it's like it's so hard to the complexity of movement, right? Putting down. But the idea, but then in the email, I was talking about the fact that like when I first started training, I very much mimicked me and my buddy first started playing. So did you ever play the Elder Scrolls games?
No.
Okay, so I played a ton of it. I was so I'll give you guys the lowdown on what I said in the email. So in the email, I was talking about how back when I was a teenager, right? Like as a kid, I was a super nerdy kid. Like I was a gamer nerd, and like not a console gamer nerd. Like because console gaming was still like considered normal at the time. You know, I was the geek that like went into his basement and built computers, built his gaming system because first off it was cheaper that way, but because I wanted everything to be certain by specs, right? So I'd have my gaming system custom made or whatever, and then like which got me absolutely no dates. Like no girl in high school ever said, "Man, wow, you built your own computer." Ooh,
you got lights on the inside.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Awesome.
They have lights on the inside. I didn't have that kind of money. I had to pay for this stuff when I was like bussing tables, right?
Yeah.
And back then computers were still kind of expensive. Now they're super cheap and relative. Like they're basically the price that like I paid back then is about the price I pay now for a pretty good system. But then I remember in high school, I installed StarCraft, which is like a real-time strategy game on the school's network. So that like everybody could it was on a self-executing file where all you do is double click, it would just put it on the computer. So this way you didn't need a CD for it, right? So I put that together on a disk, put in there, and so then it would just install on the computer, and then they could play, and we could all play on the school's network. And I remember it was like so much fun. So like we were all playing games like on whatever computer we could get a hold of during classes. And I remember it was, and back then, most of the teachers didn't know how to use computers. So we could just alt tab and like get between them. Like you'd see the teacher coming in, you just alt tab, I'm doing my work, and then your buddy's like raiding your base or whatever. But then I remember it was kind of funny like that. There was one day where I looked on the school's network I started playing a game, and there was multiple games going. And I was like, oh man, like this thing's really blown up. And I remember like the print, I got in trouble. The assistant, well, I actually didn't get in trouble. Someone else took the blame for it because they thought it was cool, I guess. But everybody thought I was like an idiot because I like lifted weights and played football and wrestled. So the blame never suspected you. Never suspected me. But they were saying that it like put a virus in the school's network. And I was like, well, I put the file together. So like in my head, I'm like, no, it didn't. I was like, it's one of the teachers that's clicking emails and stuff, because that was like when the love letter email was going around. And so anyway, I say this to let you know that I was a big nerd, right? Super big nerd. And so then one of the biggest time sucks of my life during this period was the Morrowind, the Elder Scrolls games like Daggerfall, Oblivion, Morrowind. And in turn, Morrowind was the one that I played a lot of. And I remember my buddy Chris, when we first started jiu-jitsu, we had both been playing the Morrowind game, and it was funny because I remember we got in there and going back to this idea that jiu-jitsu is this big game. It's like a role-playing game. Our styles of play in the video game were very close to how we played jiu-jitsu.
Okay, explain.
So like for instance, like I got into the game and I chose a warrior. I was like, I want to give me a sword. Like that's what I'm gonna focus on. And I'm just gonna go start hacking at stuff and adventuring, right? I'm just gonna go, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know all the controls.
You talk about that. Like you don't like even looking at the controls.
I just dive into stuff. I just want to go, I want to get my hands dirty, and then like I'll remember afterwards. I don't remember before. I'm not good with information ahead of time. I do best with information at the nick of time. Like when I'm learning it as I need it, it makes more sense to me. Me trying to learn everything before, I never remember it. I remember like, for instance, like the one time, like when I, another sort of an interesting thing about me, kind of, you guys are learning a little bit about me today. I had a tech support job for a couple of years. Basically helping people out with their tech support questions. Well, when I did that, there was like, when I first started doing it, there was a little tree essentially of questions you would ask these people. And we went through 2 weeks of memorizing this thing and understanding how role playing and everything else. The first call I get, brain fart, right? And I have to look at this thing. But then within like a week, I was fine, because then it's like, I'm understanding why I'm asking these questions, right? So, I started playing the game. I grabbed a sword, went into the forest, and I'm just like hacking at stuff. I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing. I'm not even on the main quest at this point. I'm just like wandering, right? And my buddy Chris was far more thoughtful about his approach, right? He like made his character, and he was like looking at how things would work, and he took care to like actually craft his character and then follow the story, do actually stuff like that. And when we rolled, it was very much the same way. Like he was a little bit more cautious and thoughtful about sometimes his approach. A lot of times he could beat people if he would kind of pull them in and then submit them, that kind of thing, pull them in and try to find like a weak area, then he'd beat them. Whereas me, I'm just like, I'm going in, right? And this worked out really well sometimes because I'm like going after people. I'm super aggressive, whatever. But like when I was up against like higher belts. I usually got triangled over and over again. But I just thought it was funny because here we are, our in-game characters are very reminiscent of our real life characters on the mat. As we're both on this quest to become a jiu-jitsu practitioner who's better, like we're both diving into stuff, and like he's diving it into in his more thoughtful sort of cerebral way, and then me, I'm just like I don't even know the controls yet. Let me dive into this thing and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's just indicative of learning styles, and I think everybody's got a different styles of learning. I'm one of those people as well that I need to do it, and unfortunately, I mean, make mistakes, so unfortunately or unfortunately, but like the mistakes are the things that stand out to me the most. And that's usually when I make the most leaps forward is after like I lose or make an error in a game, right? Oh, well, I lost to this boss. Now I got to figure it out. But that's usually for me is like, I don't know. So I try to look at like mistakes or losses differently now, because I think they are very valuable. I mean, and I think they're necessary as well, because I think if you don't ever deal with them, then I think your progress could be a little slower.
Well, they're normalized, right? The rough part about mistakes is that humans, and Ernest Becker writes about this in his books. There's two good ones if you guys ever want to check them out. There's the Denial of Death, and there's the Birth and Death of Meaning. I liked the Birth and Death of Meaning a little bit better, but again, they're both really good. They talk about a lot about the same things. And one of the things he talks about there's a quote that sort of sums it up pretty well really quickly, which is something to the effect of, man is nourished by self-esteem just as much as he is food. Right. And so you can think about this where like people will go out of their way to do things that will, they'll forego meals and things like that, nourishment, to build up their self-esteem. They'll put themselves in harm's way to build up their self-esteem. I mean, think about like doing jiu-jitsu in some ways, like doing a competition. I mean, you're doing this thing that you find meaningful, this endeavor, this little quest you have. And when you win, it feels really good. And in turn, you are allowing someone to have the ability to put you in all sorts of really compromising positions. MMA fighting, just as an example, right? We're getting in there to fight someone. I'm giving another human being, a license to do physical harm to me. And for what? I'm doing something that I find meaningful that is going to build up my self-esteem. It's really what it comes down to. And so the problem with the hard part with mistakes is that, especially with something that we find meaningful and we derive a lot of self-esteem from, when we lose, it really cuts at us.
Yeah, it hurts.
And so you've got, and this is where you've got to separate competition and training, right? And this is another idea about the games, right? If you want to change the game, right, and you want to change some of the conditions of it, the first thing you do is change the conditions for victory. So for instance, like with a competition, right, it could be that you need to win that gold medal to achieve victory, right? Or to beat someone to be victorious. But in training, it's a little bit different, because sure, it feels good when you do something correct and you're able to get something, but the conditions for victory in training cannot be, did I win this role or not? Because if it is, well, then you're going to be really upset for a long time, because most people don't win the majority of their roles. If they're in a mat room with some experience, you're not going to win the majority of your roles for a number of years. So instead, then I feel like with training, it comes down to more of a act of, was the habit completed? Was the work done? That in itself is what we're after. Yes, we can judge ourselves and really start to tune in and to see what we're doing that's worthwhile, whatever. But we can't judge every single role in the mat, every single time we train. We can't judge it as if it's a performance of win and loss. It's just like, for instance, writers. A lot of times you'll hear writers talk about the fact that they write, and they have their writing that they put public, and they have their writing that they do in private. Now, nobody sees their private writing. They write as if nobody's they write as if nobody's watching, and nobody will ever read this ever. And a lot of it is absolute junk. But then every now and then they'll get a really good idea, which then that kernel of an idea can then grow into something that becomes public. And so a lot of times, for instance, when you watch a high level competitor in jiu-jitsu, you watch them, and a lot of times they use a handful of the same techniques over and over. That's their public work. Now, in the gym, they've got all their private stuff, right? And they do all kinds of stupid stuff, and they're trying stuff out, they're getting submitted, and it doesn't matter. And that's honestly, a lot of people ask me, what's one of the secrets of getting better at jiu-jitsu? What's one of the secrets to even escaping? It's to become very comfortable with like getting submitted, getting beaten, losing, if you want to put it that way, on the mat in training, and identifying what training's real purpose is. Training's real purpose is not a competition between you and your training partner. Training is trying to work. Training in your gym is the exact same thing as a writer who has their journal out as soon as they wake up in the morning and they're just writing stuff down because they just want to see what comes to them. Nobody's ever going to see it, but they just want to see what they can get. On your training sessions, it's the same way. This is work that's not meant for people to view. It's not meant for people to judge other than your coach, maybe to give you some encouragement or help, or maybe for you to sort of make adjustments. It's where you're training, you're trying stuff out. And one of the biggest things that hindered me early on was not being able to experiment and not being able to try stuff. Because when I was a white belt, and this is a thing we all go through, right? I was a white belt, didn't really care that much. But then I was a blue belt. And then all of a sudden, this whole thing became very serious because now I'm a blue belt and I have these expectations of myself. And I derive some level of self-esteem from the fact that I am a blue belt. And I'm a blue belt at a time in my city where there weren't very many blue belts. Like my coach was a purple belt. Mm-hmm. The highest level jiu-jitsu belts in the city were purple belts. And here I am, I'm a blue belt. I'm right under him. Right. So I feel like I'm a big guy. I'm a big deal. Right. And so I derive a lot of self-esteem from that. And so if I lost to a white belt with my view at the time, it would stab my self-esteem, self-esteem. And so I didn't feel good. And so again, I had to change the conditions for what victory meant in training and can change those conditions. And so in training, one of the best things that ever happened was when one of my coaches, Colin and Kyle, there's two of them, they were basically, this is when I was a purple belt at this point, and I'm going through this period of not really growing. Like my techniques I'm using are good and they're getting better, but just like a small subset of them. But my game's not growing. It's not expanding. It's not changing because I don't want to make mistakes because I don't want to lose. And they're like, bro, this is training. This isn't win and lose. This is this is where we grow.
Well, I think, some of that comes back to gym culture a little bit, having not tapping and talking kind of thing. Like whatever happens on the jiu-jitsu mats in the gym is kind of like private. It's kind of
has to be.
It does, because it's like you trust each other, obviously, to try different things, to get caught in different stuff in different submissions and catch people and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be like that gym environment's so important to nurture like a development.
We've been going back to the idea, tapping and talking about it. And what we mean by this, guys, this is a term where, like, let's say if you submit someone and you get up and you maybe either cheer about it or you talk about it in the locker room, if you tap one of your training partners out, you keep that to yourself. It's not something to talk about. Because unless it's like, maybe you guys want to like, hey man, I caught you in this because you put your hand here, like watch that next time, that kind of thing, if you're trying to help them. But if it's only to sort of boost your own ego, what that's going to do is, one, it'll destroy the relation between you and that person. But also that is the equivalent of, again, let's use this analogy. This writer writes in the journal and they're just writing some stuff down. They don't think anyone's ever going to see this. And then someone takes that journal and posts it like publicly, right? Like that wasn't meant for public access. And so like, the role that you have with one of your training partners, that's not meant for everybody to know about. It's between you two. Sure, people can watch and whatever else, and it's a thing, but it's not something to gloat about. It's not something win or lose. It's not something to parade around. It is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if you don't have that environment, then you're not going to be able to experiment. You'll get better somewhat, but you may stagnate that growth for sure.
100%.
And I was talking to one of the white belts this morning about like, he was asking me like about, maybe like about blue belt, right? Like what are the requirements or not really, just kind of just like, he's like, I feel like I'm getting closer to blue belt.
Yeah.
I didn't really say anything. I was just kind of listening. But then I started thinking in my head, I'm like, how much does the belt really matter in general? I think it matters in a way of, that it's kind of here's your progress. You're making progress. I acknowledge your progress. But honestly, in a role, like I wonder how it changes the dynamic of training. Like if you and I don't know each other and we're doing no-gi and I don't know what belt rank you are and you don't know what belt rank I am, we might train, or I might go at you totally different.
Oh yeah.
I may respect you less or might not respect you, whatever. Versus like, I know you got a black belt on and I'm like a blue belt or something. I see a black belt, I'm like, oh boy, you know what I mean? So like, I think now more than ever, it's not so much about like some of these things. Like when you started training, being a blue belt is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not as big of a deal because there's like so many good white belts and there's so many good blue belts. There's blue belts that can get purple belts. And it's just like, there's so much more, I think, mixture of like skill set at the different levels. Like, I mean, look at J-Rod, you know, winning ADCC trials, right? He's a blue belt. Like, come on. Like, so it's so much more, I think, about mat time and mat hours, which can now be really like somebody that starts 2 years ago could accumulate so many more mat hours, you know, in a short amount of time because they have the opportunity to train every day, multiple times, compete, watch videos, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I was just kind of thinking to my head, like, what does a belt matter in this case? I mean, there's more responsibility with it, but other than that, like, what's the
it's the perception, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people, the perception of the belt, like, I mean, when they get one, the perception that they have of themselves changes.
Yeah.
And so, and that
can have that effect.
And it can do a number of things. It can sometimes make people better.
Yes.
Because they hold themselves to a higher standard. And sometimes it propels them forward because they're, okay, I'm a blue belt and I need to like step up my game. I know I had that feeling when I became a brown belt. I was like, I need to step up my game. And then in some cases it can have the opposite because then people could put like, and everybody's had this with something, right? We have an expectation of what it'll feel like when we have achieved a certain goal. Every one of us has some goal where we thought that like if we just got to this goal, man, everything would just be different, right? Maybe maybe you've had this with money. Maybe this was with like a home you bought. Maybe a girlfriend or a boyfriend, someone you dated. You thought, man, if we were together, wow, it would just be great. Or even a car, whatever the thing that you're chasing after, a medal, a gold medal, whatever the insert in the thing, and then you get there and you're like, huh.
That's it, huh?
That's it, right? Like I still pretty much feel like the same person. You know what I mean? And so that happens a lot of times for people with blue belt because they chase after it. And there's almost a sadness when you reach your goals because it's reached. There's a book called The Alchemist.
I've read it.
And so do you remember the one where it's been a few years, but like the guy who he's working in a shop and like, I think it's like in like, where is it? Like in like Northern Africa or whatever. He's working in a shop. The guy, he's talking about going to see the pyramids. And the guy's like, oh, I'd love to see the pyramids. And he's like, well, come with me. He's like, I'm not going to go see him because if I see it, the dream is gone.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so you think about that because every time you accomplish a goal, something's lost. Right. Because every time you go in so for instance, in our lives, we can't do everything. So every time you move one step this direction, it's one step in another direction you cannot go ever. Like every time you, like, for instance, like if you go to one destination because you're trying to travel the world, you go to one destination, that means there's time taken away where you can't go to another one.
Yeah.
Because you can only see so many places, you can only be so many places. And so like, you know, there's this thing where you're like, I've achieved this goal and it took me 2 years to do this, whatever. Okay, I've done this. Okay, what now? Like, you know, again, it's like, what are you going to do? And so there's always that sort of situation going on.
Yeah. I don't want to say it's like I don't know if it's a letdown or like I don't know. It's just,
it can be.
Well, it's just like, you know, we had Muhammad. I remember, I'll never forget, you know, he talked about kind of Muhammad Ali was on the podcast who won, you know, the worlds. And he's like, dude, I kind of went into like a little bit of a dip, like a depression because I was like, what now? Like, I just like worked so terribly hard to achieve this thing and I gave it everything and I did it. Now what?
Yeah.
What do I do? It's like, it's like, that's what, you know, just even with like UFC or MMA fighters, like they achieve that world title. And it's like, well, it's so much harder to keep it because you've achieved it. Now you're the one being chased. You're not chasing anyone. It's so much easier to get motivated to like, you know, to get that belt, right? That's a motivation for some people. And they get there and all of a sudden you're like, all right, now I'm being chased by these white belts, you know, if you get that blue belt. So yeah, it's a what now? And then you got to find, like we talked about so many times, what's your purpose? What's your reason? Do you love to train? Do you do it because you want a belt? Do you want a medal? What do you want? And if you do those material things, it kind of doesn't, I don't know. I just think longevity wise, it doesn't pan out.
Yeah. I think extrinsic, you know, meaning from outside of ourselves, right? So the rewards that we get from outside of ourselves, whether it be like you get paid to do a seminar, you get paid to do jiu-jitsu or whatever, or you get a gold medal for a competition, or you get a pat on the back from your coach, or, you know, whatever that extrinsic motivation reward is, that's fine to have, and they're good, right? But I think when it really boils down to it, when you're talking about like, in this kind of these ideas, to me, I listen and read a lot about like creative artists, because to me, like, very much like there's jiu-jitsu is a martial art, right? There's that art slant to it where it's a very creative process.
I agree.
It's not a paint by the numbers, punch and click. I mean, it's very creative, and each one of us is going through this journey, and we each have unique things about us, unique body types, everything else. And so there's going to, each one of us will have a slightly different game. Even if it's kind of the same game, it'll be a little bit different because of the way that we go about things. And so there's very much a creative process that has to go on. And when you read about creative types, artists of sorts, right, whether writers, painters, sculptors, whatever you want to consider an artist, right, one of the things that you see that's pretty universal about them is that they're like sort of reward, their intrinsic focus is not really sort of getting a pat on the back or that a boy or whatever. Everybody wants those things, of course, but really what it comes down to is like, did you put your work in? You know what I mean? Like, did you do what you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, for instance, you know, Stephen Pressfield, he's written a ton of books, and some of which I really like. But in his book, The War of Art, he talks about the idea of just doing the work, right? Like if you know, the professional, as he calls it, doesn't wait for motivation to strike. The professional just does their work. And he's like, you know, motivation, quote, in air quotes, strikes me every day from like 9 to 5. You know, he's like, that's what I'm doing my work. And it just is what it is. Like, you know, you just got to do what you got to do. And so, you know, I think that's a powerful thing. And so that really goes down to like training. Like, it doesn't always matter how well the training session went. The fact that you did your training, you know, and like a lot of times you have to be kind of detached from the results of training, because training's not always going to go well.
Yeah.
Some days it does. And you're loving it, man. Like you're hitting moves and you feel fluid, and you just like, you can roll forever. And then a couple days later, a week later, you know, you can't even seem to do basic white belt moves, and you're a black belt. Everybody's got your number. You're tired. You know, you can't roll as many rounds. You had to take a break because you got kind of winded, and you're like, what the hell happened? And it's just one of those days. But you can't judge it. It just has to be like, well, I put my time in, and, you know, because we all know that long term, that if you put your time in, good things are going to happen. Sure. From that. It's just the way it is, you know, and that's the idea, is like, you've got to focus on making those good habits, because good habits will, you know, build you up, and bad habits they'll break you down. Yeah. And it's as simple as that. And so, you know, having that habit of training without the attachment to the outcome, you know, that's a really important thing. And again, it's the idea of changing the victory conditions of a training session when it's considered a success versus not a success, right? A lot of people leave their training sessions and they feel like if they didn't like kill everyone, that they wasn't successful.
Yeah. And I still, that still strikes me a lot of times. I'm like, man, you know, like somebody gets the better of me. I'm like, why the hell did that happen? Or what do I, but it, you know, I've found that that's sometimes what I need. And it gets me going. The next time, so I'm like, oh, I remember so-and-so got me. I want to roll with them. Yeah. I want to make it. I want to see if I can right the ship a little. I want to see if I can kind of correct it, or if I can do better at least. Because some people just have your number. Some people go back and forth. They get you one day, you get them one day. But it's always enjoyable. It's always humbling, I think. And I think sometimes it sharpens for me. If I have a bad day on the mats, it eats at me a little bit. I'm getting better about not taking it home and being pouty about it, but also it sharpens me. I think it gives me a little bit of that drive and that fire. So for next time.
Well, yeah. And I think it's good to look at it and say, like, for instance, and this is the trick, and this is the hard part, because we become very attached to our art. Becomes a part of who we are, right? Like, because again, think about it this way. If I ask any of you listening, and I ask Eugene, if I say, who are you? You will proceed to tell me a set of stories about who you are. My name's Eugene, and I've got these kids, and I've got a wife, and I do physical therapy. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I've been doing this. I've got a black belt jiu-jitsu. You'll tell me all these stories about who you are, and we become attached to those stories. That is, in essence, that's who we think we are, our ego, right? And it's how we know who we are, and it's how we sort of create our structure of ourselves to navigate the world, right? And we become very attached to those things. Well, the problem is, let's say, for instance, if you don't have a good day, right? Like if you say, I'm a black belt and I beat Bob today, or I beat Bob yesterday. Oh shit, Bob just beat me today. Then all of a sudden the movie reel changes. And sometimes we don't like those changes. And that creates a struggle. The thing that you have to then change is like, again, you have to sort of think about it as this. You can't take it personal. You have to say, okay, well, Bob beat me today. How did he beat me? What did he do? And then you like think about that, like, and that in itself, if you start stewing, not taking it personal, not getting bummed out, but being like, all right, Bob hit me with this damn sweep. What was his grips? Okay, he was doing this with his right hand. Oh, okay, I'm gonna get that son of a bitch tomorrow, right? Like, and then that's a better place to be because it's resourceful. You're saying, you know what did they do? How can I fix this problem for next time? For instance, like when I was just recently, we have a really good brown belt that's training with us, who could easily compete in a black belt tournament, no problem.
He's terrible.
He's
great.
great.
I don't know what you're talking about. He's the worst.
He's great. No, so he's
really good.
He's
a
great
good
training partner. He rolls hard, but you can tell there's a good vibe. Like sometimes you roll with people and there's not a good vibe. It's weird. You can just you can tell. Like I can tell if someone's having a bad day just by connecting to their body and moving with them. Like, ooh, you feel different than I remember. Like I can tell that you're off today because I can feel there's a tenseness in you.
Yes,
it's weird, but it's just a sensitivity you develop in jiu-jitsu over time. And so like you can roll with them and you can just tell the energy's fun, right? Well, we were rolling and we were doing mount escapes and mount attacks. And I've been practicing being very heavy in mount. So usually if I isolate someone's right arm, it disables their mount escapes in a big way, right? Because you're taking away most people's dominant arm.
Okay.
Well, it didn't stop his escapes at all. So then I went to his left side. I was like, let me take that left arm out of the mix. And I did, and it slowed him down a ton. You know what I mean? And so again, just in the moment, right? Like I can't hold mount on this brown belt. Damn, my mount sucks, right? Well, no, my mount doesn't suck. But what is he doing? Like what's going on in that moment right there? He's doing something with his left hand. And even though I have the right hand disabled, he's still doing something with this. Okay, let me try this. Let me go after that left arm. And then that time I was like, okay. So he's really good at escaping with his left arm. And so that's an example of being sort of aware of what's happening instead of taking it personally and being like, oh man, I suck and whatever, I can't. Well, what are they doing? Like try to feel around in the body. Like what's going on there? Are they setting up a frame? Are they grabbing on something? Are they getting a particular grip? Be cognizant of that stuff, because if you can become like aware of that stuff, that's where you can really like start fine tuning stuff. And it can be as simple as taking away a grip that'll just completely change the whole roll.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like if I roll some people, I'll notice like, man, they will not get out of my collar with their right arm. So then in turn, I'm thinking, well, they've got something that they want there. So it's like, you know, if you saw a dog that was like, let's say if there was like a little, like a bucket or something that had turned over and some dog was sniffing around and was like getting really antsy about it, you would think there's something in that bucket, right? Well, then if someone's grabbing in my collar, there's probably a reason why they're doing it. They want something there. And so for me, I'm like, let's get them away from that collar. Let me break that grip off constantly. Yep. And so you got to be aware of those things. And those are like, you know, simple ways that you can make adjustments to your game and improve every day, where if someone does something to you, and especially if you notice it more than once, try to think about what did they just do? Don't think about it don't take it personally. Your self-esteem should be independent from an outcome in training. I know that's hard. It is, but it's very hard because we derive a lot of self-esteem from doing good at something. But for training, it has to be. But then you got to look at it and say, okay, what did they just do? And that can be a really beneficial way to, and in my estimation, if like, let's say, for instance, if you were asking me, if you rolled with someone and they did something to you multiple times, you did not figure out what they did, but you managed to smash them and beat them later on, versus they did this move to you multiple times. You figured out the grip. You didn't smash them, but you were able to destroy, like just completely just stop that technique dead in its tracks because you knew what they were going for. I would say the second one, even though you didn't smash them, would be a better victory for training because you actually figured out what they were doing. You actually got very thoughtful about what's going on, and you actually became like aware of what's going on rather than just charging into stuff. And going back to my old analogy of the video games, right? When I went charging into things, I got caught a lot from it. And as I got older, I had to be a lot more thoughtful about my approach. So
bringing it around. All right. That's a good way to end it. So jiu-jitsu is like video games. I think that's very,
if you guys missed it, again, I'm a gamer nerd from another time. I don't really game a ton anymore. Usually like a couple hours a week, usually as a sort of a de-stressor on one day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you guys are into video games and you didn't listen to the first half, go listen to it later on or listen to it later at another time. But we went into kind of some video game stuff and my nerdy background from high school.
Let's open up to some Q&A, guys. So send us some questions. We'll go through them. And some people are talking about sumo wrestling. I don't know.
Sumo wrestling.
Do you think I don't know. I saw something in the chat. Do you think sumo wrestling has any? Do you think it could help your? I feel like are probably some parallels, some ways it can help. Obviously,
help for what?
Just help jujitsu. I mean, is that when I think of like supplementing my jujitsu, I don't think sumo wrestling. Obviously,
I mean, I guess if you were. If you're not going to go full sumo and get like really overweight and fat, you'd probably be okay. Because there's probably some good like understanding of like leverage and throws with I think so. With the belt. Because if you're in gi jiu-jitsu and you got that belt, I'm sure there's something to be learned from there. You know what I mean? Although I think that there's probably other arts that are far more applicable. That said, if you want to learn sumo, go learn sumo and have fun with that. Because there's sometimes I think one of the most interesting things to do is try to find like very different subjects and then try to find ways to draw. Well, then you find ways that they have similarities within them. We just got into talking about like video games and jiu-jitsu, and like that kind of stuff. And so there's all kinds of similarities with things.
All right, here's a question from Carl, and it's his first tournament. And basically he's asking, he's 30 years old. He's about 240 pounds. The event starts at 1:30. He's just wondering what your day of eating and stretching schedule is like. So maybe like your pre-tournament prep.
Pre-tournament. So pre-tournament, very, very important. Do not change your food. Like don't eat something that's not on the menu, bro. Because again, you're a lot of times your stomach, if you eat first off, let me rewind. You're asking me. So I eat a very consistent diet. I eat almost the same stuff like every single day. Like I'm not joking. Like Jess was here earlier. She'll tell you I eat like the same 5 meals every day. And it's the meals that are programmed to me by my nutrition coach. I like doing this because I don't really care that much about variety of food. I just needed to make sure that I feel good for training. And it does do that. So therefore, that's my reward for eating that way. And then like one night a week, like actually tonight, when we're done with the podcast, I'm going to go pick up some Thai food, and Jess and I are going to have Thai food, and it'll be good. It'll have like a little bit of some rice and chicken and some stuff like that. So that said, I keep my diets exactly the same. Like nothing else changes about it on the day of the competition. 1:30. So here was a great example. When I did the Nogi pants in 2020, I was right on the money with weight. I had properly gotten my weight down over the course of about 8 weeks, and then was right in there. So I had my weight down low enough so that I could have a breakfast. So I woke up and I had the same meal that I had every day, which is eggs and oats with some blueberries. Got to the venue and, was kind of like hanging around at a Pop-Tart, about an hour or so before, just to have a snack that had some fast acting sugars. And I was used to Pop-Tarts, so it wasn't something too crazy out of my diet. I actually ate a couple Pop-Tarts by my coach's orders when my weight was dropping a little too low. So anyway, dieted down, got there. And then what I like to do is about an hour and a half, I'll like stretch out and I'll loosen things up. And then I start kind of getting myself warmed up. So I'll start very slow and stretch out and then slowly ramp myself up. If you would like to actually see a breakdown of what I do before a competition, it's actually on my channel. There's a video that I do like breakdown, like from the moment I get to the venue and everything else with my bag, what I bring with me to competitions. If you just put in Chewjitsu gym, or competition prep, something like that, you'll find a video of it, and I'll show you everything that I do. But as far as stretching and eating, I eat the same stuff over and over and over again. And so the day of, it's the same foods. The later on that night after the competition's over, I'll go a little crazy and have something really tasty, but not nothing changes beforehand, because I've unfortunately had situations where I've eaten something different beforehand and it didn't feel so good. And a lot of times I know that people, for some reason, they think that they need some magical food on the day of their competition, right? For whatever reason, like, your diet shouldn't change. You should have your diet dialed in before the competition. And then when you compete, you should be eating the same stuff, because if you're not eating foods that are going to support your training, then why are you eating them, every day, right? Because especially if you're training regularly, right? Like, you want foods that are going to support your ability to train and be active and stuff like that. So if you're not already eating good foods that'll do that, you need to change your diet. But that's my answer to you, my long-winded answer.
All right, we got a question here. Thank you for the super chat. Let's put that in.
All right, so we got a question from ForgeWorks.
GLG for ForgeWorks. It says,
how do I become more aggressive in my game? I'm 46 years old, blue belt, that has been off the mats for 4 years and coming back now. I'm told I'm a bit passive with people in my guard. So there's different ways to go about this, bro. So you have to think of, let's break this down real quick. Let's break down aggression versus assertiveness. Okay. Think about those as two different things. I think what you could probably maybe aim towards is more assertiveness, not aggression. When I think of just aggression, I think of the brand new person that's going all crazy or whatever. And sometimes people that get kind of heated and they get going. When I think of people that have a type of aggression that's technical, that's precise, which is what most of us want. We want to be as efficient. We want to be precise. We want to have no wasted movements. I think of assertiveness, and assertiveness doesn't mean you need to be ultra aggressive. And so a way that you can facilitate that in your game is being very dialed into what your game is. Because if you know what technique you're trying to hit on someone, you can be very assertive with your grips. So you know what grips you're going for. You're not messing around with anything else. You're going for this grip in particular. An example, one of my competitions against a really tough guy, a guy who had won Master Worlds before. I had a takedown on him within 17 seconds of the match. Now, he's really good. And I actually like the guy. He's a super cool dude. So there was no animosity. The aggression was simply assertive with being grips. With the grips, I was just going after one particular grip. As soon as I got it, boom, I went for my move. And I drilled that move hundreds of times before, over the years, and thousands of times over the years, and then hundreds of times that week of the competition. And so here's what I'd say. Number one, if you're coming back after a long layoff, don't expect to be aggressive for a while. You're just getting back, bro. And you're 46. Again, 40s, as you get older, bro, that's another thing too. The younger you are, the more aggressive you are. I feel like for a lot of people, not always, but a lot of people are more aggressive because a lot of younger guys are trying to prove themselves, which is a normal, natural thing, right? If we were like a big tribal culture, right? The young men would be trying to prove themselves to the elders, right? They're trying to show themselves to the tribe. And by doing, feats of things like strength and whatever it might be. As we get older, we start to kind of maybe sometimes lose that edge a little bit because we're not so dependent upon how we're performing day to day for our self-esteem. Like, you're a 46-year-old guy. I'm sure there's lots of stuff in your life that you derive a lot of self-esteem from. Maybe you're a father, maybe you're a husband, maybe you have a business or something like that. You have all these things that are there. Jiu-jitsu might be something that you do for fun, but it may not be like this thing where you're trying to be the best competitor in the world. So therefore, your aggression level is not going to be as high. So with that, don't worry about coming back and being ultra aggressive yet. Now, that said, to sort of start to become more competitive with people and to be more assertive, be very mindful of what techniques you're trying to go for. So like if you're in the guard, you should be thinking about the specific grips that you need to make your sweeps or your submissions happen. And you go for those over and over and over again. And by doing that, I don't think it's just trolling.
Sumo guy?
Yeah. I think that you'll be able to, by doing that, being very focused on the grips, you can make sure that you're a little bit more assertive with your game because you're going after something in particular. So hopefully that helps you, bro.
So, Chew, we had one about, let's see. I don't know. Some of these people are saying silly stuff.
Guys, I'm just gonna just stop with the sumo stuff.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm just
enough.
gonna block people. So
now we're doing Q&A. So enough with the sumo stuff.
So, is it okay? So here we go. We don't. I mean, I think that this could be something to do with the gym.
Okay.
And then they ask a 135 pounder wants to know, is it better or worse avoiding rolls with heavyweights of our gym? Am I missing out on advancing, or is it smart for injury prevention?
Well, that depends.
Depends on the heavyweight.
Depends on the heavyweight. It also depends on your skill. So, I mean, I've had guys who were smaller and they would avoid rolls with bigger guys because they had a tendency to get injured for whatever reason. No shame in it. And then I had guys that are smaller and they have no problems rolling with bigger guys. And then also the bigger guys, like how do they treat you? Like, are they like crashing down on you like 1,000%? You know, like if, for instance, if I had one of my students who was like, let's say 280 or something, and he was rolling with one of our 130 pounders, and he like, you know, took one with a blast double leg and drove him into the ground full speed, I would kind of get pissed off at him. You know, afterwards, I would want to kind of put it on him. Like there was actually a tournament once where I was in the absolute division, and there was a guy who was a big guy, and he was being very rough with some of the smaller guys that were in the absolute with him. And then, you know, I ended up with him in like the semifinals, and I was like, I'm gonna be rough with him. You know, I was like, cause I ain't so small, you know, I'm a bigger guy, so be rough with me, you know? And so I was purposely trying to be a little rough with him because I was like, yeah, I don't like it, you know? Cause again, like if you're really big, like for instance, like when I roll with someone that's like a lot smaller, I pull my weight back a little bit because again, it's just like, again, you know, there's a time that we can turn it up as we get going, but I don't want to like them to get jacked up and hurt their ribs or whatever. And then like, you know, they're hurt for a long time. They can't train. And that's a real possibility if the person's considerably bigger. So again, it's going to depend on you. You've got to use some discernment with what the situation looks like. If the person's cool, roll with them. If the person maybe is a little too aggressive or a little bit more on the dangerous side, you may move and go with someone else. It also depends on you. Are you prone to injuries? Some people seem to be more prone to injuries than others. And if you are, maybe not the best thing to do. Maybe roll with people your same size, but if you seem to be durable and you can deal with it, then go for it. Again, that's kind of one of those things you have to explore and discover for yourself.
All right. This is a gym question.
By the way, thank you to, go back to
GL. Let me see. Right here.
Yeah, the second one. Because he said a second one too.
All right, let's see. So I can show it. Thanks for answering. Yes, I meant assertive. Coffee on me.
Hey, bro, so you gave us $20 a day. So check this out.
And $10.
Hey, oh, it's 20 and a 10? Okay, yeah. Cool. So do this real quick for me. If you've got my email or if you've got my Instagram, shoot me a message and I'll get back to you with a gift.
Thank you. Thanks for the support.
So appreciate it.
Awesome. Yes. So Chewy, this was one about, let me see. There was one about gym promotions.
Okay.
And let me see. It's up here. Is it normal for schools to test for belts versus just giving them based on time they have been training? The dojo I attend doesn't test per se, but gives belts based on time training. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a wild world. So Starlight, the answer to your question is that it depends on the gym. Every gym's different. Some gyms like do it based upon like hours. Like you have like a little like time card that you put in, and then you get so many hours, and then you test. And if you do the test, then you get your belt promotion.
I think it's silly. I'm just gonna say, I don't think that could make such variability. I don't know.
Sure. No, and I get it. No, so and I agree with you. I get the allure of it because it gives someone a nice, neat thing where you can like punch your time in, and you know, hopefully the ends justify the means, right? Where basically if you're training for X amount of classes, you have achieved a certain level of skill. So I can understand it to some degree, and they have a test. And then some gyms are very informal where basically the coaches and everybody are watching, and eventually you get your belt. And that's actually kind of the old way that pretty much everybody got promoted by back in the day, was basically like you get promoted by the people up above you when it was quote time. Which I kind of like that to some degree. I'm still trying to figure out a hybrid system where I do give someone something to shoot for, but I like the idea of teaching people inadvertently doing something for doing its sake. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and the reason why I say that is because, you know, everything, you know, and this is the bad side maybe of like games, is that everything has become gamified to the point where like if you're not getting like a little achievement point or a little pat on the butt or something, it's like, what's wrong? I mean, even my Audible app, like I've got like all,
listening.
I've got
stuff.
badges.
Yeah,
I've got, why do I have badges? I don't need badges. I'm just listening to books.
Because I like,
it's like look at this. I've got the Road Warrior badge because I listen to a lot of when I'm driving, like, it's like, I don't care. But, but again, a lot of us have like gotten this thing where we need some sort of external, hey, you're doing well, keep going, versus like doing it for doing its sake. And again, this is both with the students that I've trained with, the best jiu-jitsu practitioners that I've ever like communicated with and talked to, whether it be in person or through the podcast or whatever, and even listening to the habits and the activities of really like well-known artists who have divulged their practices about how they develop their skills. Almost universally, all those people find a love and an enjoyment for just doing it. Not because of what they're going to get, but just because they like doing it. And so I think that's one of the beautiful things about the old way of promoting someone, where you just kind of get it when you're going to get it. But again, it can be frustrating because you're like, sometimes maybe you get overlooked, or maybe you think you get overlooked, or whatever it might be. So I'm trying to create a hybrid system currently, and I think I've got something figured out, but I'm still tinkering with it. But with you, again, if your gym does that, it's not uncommon. Some gyms test, some gyms don't. Some gyms do time cards, some gyms don't. But it's not uncommon or common. It just is what it is, because every gym is slightly different. There's no, like, when we as gym owners and coaches, when we become one of those, we don't get a book that says, hey, here's how to do it all, right? Here's how to do it. Here's how to run it. It's basically the Wild West, and every gym and every affiliation does their stuff a little bit differently. And so again, it's not uncommon or whatever. It just is what it is. It's not something to be alarmed about. Your gym's not some phony gym that's doing it wrong, just how they do it.
Mm-hmm. We had another question here. Let me go down to it from Dodo.
All right.
Thanks, Dodo.
Appreciate the blessings, Dodo.
Yeah. Let me get down here. There we go. Right there. So I'll read. I tend to avoid open mat after class due to mostly white belts rolling. I'm a white belt myself. Am I okay to take things slow and only do regular class in the beginning and not roll?
So that's going to be up to you. So here would be my thing. I think it's perfectly fine. If you're a newer white belt and you're getting into training and it's like a little overwhelming, maybe if you don't have an athletic background getting into this, it's probably a relatively smart idea to maybe ease into it, to train it, to get to know the ins and outs, to know the positions a little bit before you start rolling really hard. A lot of times, like in my beginners classes, we do rolling, but it's only a specific situational rolling. So like, let's say that we worked on the guard. When it's time to roll, they only work from the guard. That's it. If it goes to any other position, we stop, because full rolling will be for the other classes. In the beginners class, it's literally trying to get these new students almost like going through like the cadet academy or whatever, right? We're just trying to get them up to speed so they know what's going on. They have some basics, but I want them to roll, but I want to mitigate the dangers of injury. And a lot of times from, over the years, I've seen that most of the time injuries happen, most often, not always, because some freak stuff happens, but a lot of times with white belts, injuries happen when they are uneducated about a particular position that they're trying to use. And so we try to mitigate it in that way.
Yeah, I was just gonna say body awareness, and you have like a sixth sense, like you know this. You have a feeling. There was like a white belt one time that came in. You're like, no, I don't think you should be, and they're like, no, I want to roll. And you know, and they got injured, and like you knew, like you're like, dude, I had a feeling about it, and you just kind of I think people aren't aware of where their limbs are in space. They're not aware of how to like position themselves, how to keep themselves safe. They kind of spaz out a little bit, arms, get dislocated or shoulders get hurt, things like that happen. You're trying to save them from themselves in some ways to give them a good experience. They can come back and actually get better and learn. So
yeah, because I know that they're excited, but we got to channel this excitement. I mean, the body awareness thing that we develop is really incredible, because I was thinking about, like, I've been thinking about this as I started doing horse riding lessons with Jess, where like my pinky, okay, like because when you're riding a horse, like you have to be aware of all these different places on your body. Well, like in jiu-jitsu, it's the same way. You become very in tune about all these different places on your body. You become super hyper aware of your entire body. And I was thinking about how, like, if my pinky was hurt, like I could easily roll, Or let's say if I had a friggin' like a long nail, because this is actually where I was thinking about this. If I had like a really long nail that I hadn't trimmed on accident and a roll was starting, I could keep my pinky tucked in the whole time and still grapple, and it will never touch the person because I'm super hyper aware. When I get injured, like I can roll and keep that injured area away from the person because I'm super hyper aware of it. And so it's a really neat skill. But going back to your question, with the white belts, again, one of the things about white belts, it can be really wild because they don't have that awareness, and they can be really wild. And a lot of times elbows and stuff like that fly. I mean, that's how I got my nickname Chewy. I elbowed someone in the mouth and they called me a big dumb Wookie, and it went from big dumb Wookie to Chewy, right? Just kind of went to, it was basically in lieu of calling me you big dumb ass. And so again, I can understand. So my thing is if you're a newer white belt, yeah, it's fine. Like you don't need to roll all the time, but at some point you are going to have to roll. And rolling can be a little nerve-wracking at first. It's not uncommon to go to the gym early on with butterflies in your stomach, to be kind of like on edge, like you're kind of like you're working yourself up, maybe listening to music to kind of get yourself ready for class because you know you're going to roll. You know you're going to be in some uncomfortable spots. You know someone's going to like squeeze on your head that day. And it can be tough. I used to go to the gym with butterflies in my stomach. And then I remember later on, once I didn't have those butterflies from jiu-jitsu, we started doing MMA striking or MMA fighting. And I remember anytime we would do MMA fighting, I remember there was a guy that trained with us named John Troyer, and he was tough. And I remember John. I remember
that. This is brothers, right?
Yeah, brothers. And John was like, we competed at the same weight, but he was at the time he was a pro and I was still an amateur. And like, you know, I could grapple him pretty well, but man, like that dude was strong. He could wrestle well, like stuff a takedown, and he would hit so hard. If I knew I was sparring him that day, I was going to the gym, man, and like I'm getting my stomach was in knots, right? But it's okay because that's a good thing because that's the part of what we're doing. We're going into uncomfortable spaces and challenging ourselves.
Yeah.
And so to go back to your question, I know this is long. I'm in a very long-winded mood today, so
you are.
I'm talking in a very circuitous way. With your training, it's okay to not roll right out of the gate. That said, at some point you're going to have to. And so after, you know, at least after a month or two, if you're not rolling yet, start just rolling a little bit. You don't have to roll every round, roll one round. Try to roll around with one of the more advanced white belts. Take a round out afterwards, right? Like you can ease into that process. You don't have to go full bores, full steam right out of the gate.
All right. We got another message. It's from Michael. You want to read that? You want to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. So we got Michael Rochin says, just want to say thank you to Eugene for helping me rehab my elbow and jumping on an hour-long call with me. So also thank you to Chewy for your YouTube content. It makes me look like a stud. I feel confident. Very good.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you.
Helped him with his elbow.
Yeah. I think he had one of my courses.
What did he have going on with his elbow?
I don't recall, but just like I think maybe like an arm bar or something. Just had some pain and things like that. But we just kind of talked through it, man. He started feeling better. I have like an elbow course as well on my website. And
yeah, and guys, by the way, if for those of you that are doing the super chat, I appreciate the support.
Thank you.
So if you guys have donated $10 or more today, we'll make that kind of thing because it's what everybody's been doing. $10 or more. Shoot me a message on email, shoot me a message on Instagram, one of those two places, and let me know later on, and I will get back to you with a gift just to say thank you and show gratitude to you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. And somebody had asked, I don't know where the message is, but they asked about like keeping track of progress of the students. Like, do you have a program or something? It's not, and I think you've started the like promotions, kind of like doing like we do promotion dates more or less, and like sporadically doing it just so you can kind of keep everybody, so you can kind of see how everybody's progressing and stuff, keep track of everything. So some people, you know, go months and over years without stripes, and you just forget, you know. It's not that you're not, you just have a lot of students. But is there anything, like, we don't use any kind of program, is there anything you do to kind of keep track? I know.
So I have the dates of belts. I have the dates that when people were promoted to belts. So I'll be honest with you, brother. Like with stripes, my students know this. I'm not a great striper. Like you might go a while with a stripe and all of a sudden you might get like 3, you might get a new belt. It just happens sometimes. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I when I first started, I didn't even have stripes. We just did, we did bells. We did no stripes. And honestly, I would prefer that and just get away with the stripes. And I may do it. I don't know. Because I just don't see stripes as necessary. It's like, why? Like you're a blue belt, put the work in and we'll promote you. But we'll figure that out later on. I'm still sort of working on it.
I think the other thing that you actually do and you're really supportive of, you have coaches that coach at different times. We have morning guys, evening guys, we have early morning guys, and you've kind of given us some leeway and like, hey, if you see guys that feel like are progressing, let's talk about it, and you can promote them. So we've had a couple guys in the 6 a.m. class. We promoted 2 blue belts. We've got some stripes. So like, I think, and I think the black belts that the coaches that are there, even though they're not the main coaches, like, is there communication there and like kind of checking in with the head coach?
Well, right. Well, you guys have, the gym has gotten so big now, it's expanded. So you guys teach classes and you see students I don't ever see.
Right.
Because you guys are 6 a.m. and I don't see them, because I'm teaching at nighttime or in the mornings, and you guys are in the early mornings. And then I've got some people that come into the middle of the afternoon that I don't see that often. And so I try to stay connected. And like anytime we do a belt promotion, the other coaches and the other higher belts, they get to chime in with their input on who they think they see as improving. So this way, because I know that, for instance, I'm one person and as busy as I am, I'm definitely going to miss stuff. And so by having everybody contributing, we can basically make sure that there's eyes everywhere on the mat. And a lot of times some students seem to gravitate towards other coaches more so than other coaches. And so it's in a way for us all to be in on it together and say, man, so-and-so's looking really good. So-and-so's looking really good, whatever. And they can give me input for promotions.
Yep. All right, let me see. There's it's armbar for that injury. Okay. I think. Let me see if there's I didn't get a ton of stripes. Like we just did like green belt at the first gym. And I also remember we would do a lot positional. It would just be pass defend. Initially. So for the first few months that I started training, that's all I ever did. And then you could go to other classes and stuff. They had some MMA, no-gi classes, but that was a lot of kind of how I started. And I think there's always some nerves, I think, with the unexpected, with full rolls. I was just going to kind of bring that up. Like, I think the nerves with that, because there's a lot that can happen. It's not a set setup. I think if you want to get more comfortable rolling, you may say, all right, let's start in my closed guard or whatever position you're comfortable in. Let's do pass defend or positional training. Once we get out of this position, let's reset. And for somebody that's not comfortable with training and stuff, but I think, it's how you test your skills. I mean, there's no really other way. That's the beauty about jiu-jitsu, is that's how you see if your techniques work, if you're effective. It's not like, I mean, it takes a lot of like a lot of the guesswork out of it. It's like, well, all right, I've done the sweep in practice. Can I hit it?
Can I hit it against a resisting opponent?
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu. You can actually go 100% and actually see if your skills work. So, okay, Chewy, this is Michael's got a question. Let's do that one.
Okay, please answer. Have any motivational words for those with ADHD? I forget techniques minutes after learning it, and it makes me feel defeated a lot. So, Michael, here's a question I have for you, because I don't know that I wouldn't say that I have ADHD, but I do struggle to focus. So, for instance, here's an example. If I'm in a setting where, like, until I actually do the move, it doesn't really click for me at all, right? So for instance, like I was talking about earlier, I don't know if you were on the podcast or not, at that point, basically I don't learn information ahead of time. I learn it in the nick of time. I learn it as I'm getting my hands like active with it, right? So for instance, with the jiu-jitsu technique, if someone goes through let's say someone goes through a 20-minute explanation of a technique, they go through every in and out of that movement, that position, conceptually, specific movements, everything, the whole thing, right? I probably won't remember almost any of it. I'll remember the basics of it and I'll be able to get my whatever. If I get started on the technique and then afterwards they explain more about it later on, it clicks for me in little chunks. I'm not one of those people that remembers like for instance, John Danaher is a great example of someone who can just go into these long explanations of techniques that are incredibly dense with useful information. I can watch them for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because then I have to think about, okay, how am I going to implement that into a drill or into a roll or something like that? Because if I don't, it's just going to be too much. Whereas I have other friends that can just watch them straight and they can just take it all in. I'm not that way. So I don't know if maybe that's where you're at. There's some other things that I've seen with like people with ADHD, because I actually researched the idea a little bit, because of the fact that, like, I feel like with the way technology is, it almost makes us
feeds into it, right?
Yeah, it feeds us into it a little bit. So, but again, my thing with you, if you said that's me, okay, good. So yeah, I don't necessarily think you're like, unless you've been diagnosed with ADHD, you may not be that. You may just be a different type of learner. Like a lot of people like us potentially learn in a more like bodily kinesthetic way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not going to be like, there's people learn in different facets. Some people are better like with like audible, like with the words.
Yeah.
Some people are better with visual, and some people like us, it's more of like a bodily kinesthetic thing. We have to feel it. So for instance, like when I teach techniques, I don't really, I try to keep my explanations at 5 minutes or lower. And then we'll come back and I'll go back, I'll explain that move again multiple times. But basically it's like, all right, here's the move, go try it out. Okay, bring it back in. So here's the mistakes you guys were making, which I knew were going to happen. Here's the mistakes. Here's why we're not going to make those mistakes. Go do it again. Come back, right? And basically this way, like there's context to what I'm showing because you felt it. So when I teach it to you again, it's going to have more context. So the idea one is, if you've been diagnosed with it, rock it out. But if not, I wouldn't identify it with it too much. You may not be ADHD. You may just learn in a different way. And in that sense, don't worry about whether or not you remember techniques. Worry about just like going in there and playing with them. And again, also remember, bro, I've talked about this a bunch recently with different videos and things I've posted in emails. You're not going to remember everything very often. Think about it this way, Mike. I imagine there's probably a movie that you like know word for word almost, right? Maybe you really like movies and there's a few movies that you know for word, but there's at least one. Most of us have like a movie we watched so many times that we just like loved it, right? Well, the reason why you know that movie word for word is because you watched it a bunch. You didn't watch it once and say, I got it. You watched it a bunch. And so you got to think about that. A lot of times you're going to learn techniques and you're going to forget them. And then you're going to learn them again from the coach, maybe a month or two later or whatever, a year later. And then they stick a little bit better that time. And then you forget them. And then it happens like this all the time. There's so many techniques, bro, that you're not possibly going to remember them all at any given point. And especially not your first time around. You're going to, like most of the time when you're new, you forget stuff pretty quickly early on. This is why, this is why I advocate for a lot of coaches, like less is more with your teaching. And stick to areas of jiu-jitsu. Keep your theme and your technical focus the same for at least a couple weeks. Give people time to sort of drink that information in, But either way, you're not going to remember that stuff early on. It's going to take repetition. It's going to take time. A way that you could do this is if you can remember the name of the technique that you guys went over or what it was, you could put that into YouTube and go watch a video of it later on. Like, let's say if you work on a scissor sweep, you can go watch the scissor sweep on YouTube and try to refresh yourself a little bit, or even try to record maybe yourself or someone doing it, whatever you want to do, just to refresh yourself. But otherwise, I wouldn't be too worried about it. It's pretty normal. It's not something to look at yourself as like you're just like you're dumb or you're not getting it or whatever. It's pretty normal. I mean, I was there. I was like, I felt like I needed to have the dunce hat on and sit in the corner because all my friends could remember stuff and I couldn't. But at the same time, I was really good with my moves that I did remember, and I was able to beat them during rolling a lot. So, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody learns different. I mean, just such unique. I'm one of those people that has to do it. I have to physically do it. I have to see it. I need to do it. If I just read about it or just I don't quite retain it. And I think,
I think most people don't really there's head knowledge and body knowledge, but I still think some people seem to remember more details.
Sure.
Than others. Like I don't remember details unless I do it.
Yeah. All right. Here's one, and this could be a kind of open-ended a little bit. This is any check tip or any tip to keep someone in the guard. I get my guard passed easily. You don't play a ton of guard, Chewy.
Like full guard?
Yeah.
I mean, I play a little bit.
You just play like a half, but I guess I assume we're
just gonna say full guard.
Full guard. I assume full guard. That's what I was reading. But
I mean, it depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But I mean, one of the first things is you got to get really good at breaking posture on the person, like when they're inside your full guard. And if the guard opens, you've got to figure out a way to keep a connection with them at all times. Because if they get broken away from you, they're just gonna be able to run around you. And then if they're beginning to pass, then you need to learn how to, you got to work on your guard retention. You also have to work on countering whatever those particular passes are and putting yourself in a good position. That's a tough one to answer just by speaking, other than giving you a broad sort of stroke of saying your guard retention and like posture breaking.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that the distance management, like, if somebody's like opening up your guard, don't allow them to create so much distance. They can just step away and kind of move around. And, I think you do this better than anyone I've rolled with is your grip fighting. Like, a lot of it's grip fighting, hand position, that kind of stuff. You do that and that like sets up everything. So, I mean, controlling grips and that kind of stuff can be really, I mean, that's just, like I said, that's a general, it's not really specific, but like in closed guard, I mean, posture is a huge thing. If you're working posture, and then have, work on grips. I mean, those are some easy things to maybe focus on. Yeah. What else? Anybody got
go down real quick.
Yeah, let's go down.
There's one right there, Peter.
This one? All right, let's read it.
Peter Blanco says, how do you manage with plateaus and lack of motivation apart from just turning up? So I think you mean by just showing up is kind of like, maybe that's the Australian version of that. So first off, I rarely get plateaus anymore. Granted, I don't measure them as much, and I'm sure they're happening, but I don't really become too identified with them. But one of the things is that it's really hard to get a plateau if you're constantly shaking things up, right? So if you're training and you run into a training plateau or a lack of motivation, one of the simplest things is just to change things. Play with different techniques, play a different position, go to training on a different day or a different time than you normally do. Do something to shake things up, right? Go get some new gear that makes you excited to go train. Do something to shake it up. Do something to inject novelty in it. Training plateaus and lack of motivation. Training plateaus, first off, they're usually a sign that you're just doing the same old stuff over and over again. It becomes almost boring and you're not making any progress. And if you're not changing your game, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, the people around you that are growing are going to pass you up, which in turn makes you feel like you're hitting a plateau. So if you're changing things up and constantly doing new stuff, you're going to be growing more. And in turn, you'll be excited because you'll be noticing that you're getting better with certain techniques or this or that, and you'll feel progress with your game. And it also keeps it fun. Because like, if you're just doing the same old thing, it can be very boring. Humans love novelty. We love something new, right? I mean, this is why, like from a business standpoint, like if you go through your detergent aisle, you'll see every time you go through the detergent aisle, there's always something new. Tide's got some new thing, right? Like now there's the Tide with the booster pack that's just more Tide in it, right? But it's new. Oh, buy me, right? So it's exciting. It's new. They'll change it up every 6 months. You literally just go through and walk. You like every 6 months you'll see something brand new. It's like, it's just detergent. Like they've been making this stuff for like 100 years. Like it ain't that new, right? But they put a new bell and whistle on it.
How exciting is detergent, really?
But I mean, but that's a competitive business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even like some of the companies actually used to produce a competitive brand, because they knew people would try their stuff.
The same company.
Yeah. Like they would produce, like Tide, I forgot what theirs used to be. They used to produce another detergent that was simply a competitive brand that was just basically more Tide in it. And so I mean, it is what it is. And even like, you'll see like Taco Bell.
Genius.
One of the
so genius.
One of the things Taco Bell does really well. And this is just from a business standpoint. I don't like their food. No offense to them. I just, if I get Taco Bell, I can throw it in the toilet, cut out the middleman, and we'll be good. But it's one of those things where with Taco Bell, they've done a really good job of always mixing up their menu, right? Changing up their menu all the time. It's a Crunch Wrap Supreme. It's a cheesy thing. It's a pizza. I don't know. But the thing is, when you actually get down to it, what is Taco Bell? It's a tortilla. It's meat, cheese, vegetables, like lettuce, whatever. It's the same food. It's just wrapped up in different ways, but they give it a new name. They give it like, it's this whole thing, right?
I saw this really funny tweet, and the guy goes, I went to Taco Bell, and then Taco Bell replied, they go, what'd you get? And he goes, diarrhea.
So there you go. That's funny. But going back to your question. So do something different. Like if you're doing the same old stuff, do something new. Try a new technique, do something new, kind of make it fun for yourself again. And that'll be a good time. And it'll make it a little bit more, make it more fun. You'll break through that plateau, and you'll probably have more fun with it and get through that motivation gap. Someone just asked if I'm going to do any more day of the life vlogs. Possibly. I know I do one of those every now and then. If you would like to see one, is there a particular aspect or something that you would like to see within those? If I record another one here in the near future, is there something you'd be interested in seeing?
We are going to ADCC, so that would be a fun one. Yeah. A little traveling and a little vloggage.
And Michael, I've had a Crunchwrap Supreme. That used to, like back in the day when I was in my gaming days, bro. Like that was one of my go-tos. Eat that like I'd be eating Taco Bell playing games.
What's the grill stuffed burrito? That was my go-to.
That was one.
This is how long it's been. It used to be $1.89, and it'd be tax. It'd be $2 with tax on the nose.
I remember like I would go to like Taco Bell, and like me and my buddy, we'd spend like $30 for two of us.
My God.
I mean, bro,
that's like you're eating like a king.
Bro, $30 at Taco Bell back in like 2005. Like you've got like a feast.
If that toilet could talk. Yep. Chewy. Let's answer this one. Zero Stripe White Belt. He asks, we got a couple answers for this one. What's your favorite gi or jiu-jitsu gear?
So here's a couple for you. Favorite gi, Origin. I love their gis. I'm in love with them.
That top, man, I love it.
Such a good gi.
It's awesome.
It's a great
feels
gi.
Good.
Such a good gi. I feel, and I also love the mission behind it, because like it's made in America. It's not made in anywhere else. It's made by Americans making a living wage, not in some like sweatshop somewhere. So that makes me feel good.
Hello, sir, madam.
Yeah, right. So I like that. I like supporting that business, right? And I want to support my fellow Americans doing that stuff. So hell yeah, I'm going to buy that. But it's also a really good quality gi. Like, I mean, I've got one of my gi. So originally, this is how this story happened. 2018, I went up to get my level 2 certification in CrossFit, because at the time we still had a CrossFit gym within our gym. And I went up there to do it. And the first day, the guy because I had my level 1 before, and I learned a lot of interesting stuff. I wasn't really that interested in CrossFit, but I learned some stuff at it. So it was kind of fun. Well, so we go up there for the level 2, and like the guy running it was kind of an asshat. Like some of the instructors were super freaking cool, and some of them actually knew me. They were like, "Oh, you're that jiu-jitsu guy," like because they do jiu-jitsu. Super cool people. But then there was this one that was kind of like he's just a dick. So I was like, I remember I was sitting at the hotel with my business partner Joe, who he was more into CrossFit than me, and he was actually going to do the thing. And I talked to him, and I was like, man, I was like, I'm not going tomorrow. I'm not going to go, because at this point in my life, this is 2018. I had basically come to the agreement back in 2017 that like, unless I have to, like for instance, taxes, I got to pay taxes. I don't have a choice in the matter. But assuming that I don't have to, I don't do things I don't want to do. Like there's no reason to, unless I want to do them, I don't do them. So that's the way it works. And so I was like, you know what? I didn't enjoy myself today, and I don't think I'm going to enjoy myself tomorrow. So you know what? I don't want to do that. So the next day or later that night, I was like, I'm going to go find a place to train. And it just so happens one of the people that was working for Origin was in Ohio, was up there where I was at. And she met me at the hotel lobby. And we started talking. She gave me a gi, said, try it out. And if you're interested, we can develop a relationship further. And so I got this gi. I've had it for 4 years now. Great gi, still works, still no tears on it. It's amazing gi. And so again, I really like the quality of the product. So that's Origin. So that's my spiel for Origin. With Nogi, they don't have shorts yet. So I'm sure they'll do great shorts someday, but they still don't have MMA or like grappling shorts. So I can't go with them. Nogi, I wear, if you watch my Instagram, every video I use or post pretty much has Epic Rolls stuff in it, right? Shameless plug. If you want 15% off Jiu-Jitsu at the checkout. But I wear stuff every time. And I don't wear it because of the business partnership that we have or whatever. I wear it because it's so damn comfortable. The shorts are amazing. The rash guard's great. I like his stuff. And lastly, this is another thing. If you have like a lot of gear and it's stinky, and you've got like a spouse or something that thinks you're disgusting. I have my wife bought me this thing called a stinky bag. It's like STNKY bag. It's amazing. Great invention. And basically what the stinky bag is, it's like this little mesh, like it's a bag that has a little mesh in it. You can put some stinky stuff in there. And like, I've tested this out because I was like, let's see if this works. I took some nasty old sweaty clothes, threw them in there, zipped it up, threw it into my trunk, left it there for a week in the hot July sun. My car didn't stink. I was like, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's legit. Now, it smelled like death when I opened it up to wash the clothes, but while it was in my car, as long as it was zipped up, it was fine. And so I really like their bags. And so it's a great thing for us jiu-jitsu people who have like, stinky bags and stuff that we got to stuff back in there, take home to wash. And so those would be 3 pieces of gear that I could give you that I like: the no-gi gear, the gi, and then also the
I've got one more actually, and my wife bought this without me knowing.
Okay.
You guys, if you guys have ever used Defense soap, Defense has like this little like additive, like when you're washing your stuff, because those the rash guards get like a little mildewy, they get like a little scent to them. So she literally washed it with like this additive, and like all the smell was gone. Dude, it was awesome. I gotta figure out what it was, like some kind of little additive you put in. It was awesome. And she did that without me knowing. She's like, your stuff doesn't stink anymore. I was like, awesome.
That's pretty dope.
No, it was great. It was really great. All right, Guam Tech. Guam Tech's got something for us. You ready?
Yeah.
He says, love you guys. Can you say something to motivate / shame me into quitting smoking? I'm so tired of my bad habits affecting my BJJ and life altogether. So maybe you do a motivation, I'll shame you. I don't know.
No, I'm not. I'm not that guy. See, like, by the way, guys, if you buy a stinky bag, if you go to their website, use a discount code Chewy, you'll save a percentage off. Just a heads up. There you go. Just letting you guys know. Everything I love, I try to do like a partnership with.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Guam Tech, I can't give you a shame because I'm not that guy. Like, like there's some dudes where they'll do the like, you fucking suck, get out there and stop being a pussy, blah, blah, blah. I'm not one of those guys. That's not how
it doesn't work, right?
Well, it does for some people. It doesn't work for me. I don't respond that way. And so I don't really respond to people in that manner. The thing that I would say, so like, the thing is that you're dealing with, like, if you're smoking, that's a difficult chemical dependency, right? Like that's a difficult one. And so, there's tons of resources out there, I'm sure. And I don't know what that's like, right? The only thing that I can maybe even come close to is like coffee. And coffee's not like near as addictive as friggin' nicotine is, right? But like you like look at people. So many people have an addiction to coffee or caffeine that they can't get off of, that they think they can't get off of. They think they can't do without it. And they can. They'd be fine if they just got off coffee or caffeine for about a week and a half. They would be completely fine, and they would actually probably wouldn't feel the headaches or anything else. But like they feel like they need to have it, and they a lot of times will sort of mask this as, I just like the taste. Well, if you like the taste, drink decaf instead for a week. See how you feel, And so, again, that's the only thing I can compare to, because I detox off caffeine regularly, so that I don't become too dependent on it. That's just me. The thing that I can tell you is that my uncle, and again, I'm sure this is stuff you probably heard before. My uncle stopped smoking years ago, and I thought it was the coolest thing because I had a family full of like alcoholics and smokers, and my uncle was the one who didn't do either, and he used to drink a lot, used to smoke. And I remember asking him, I was like, how did you stop smoking? I was like, because everybody else says it's like, it's outrageously hard. And he's like, well, you just kind of take it a day at a time. And then if it gets worse, you just take it a minute at a time, and it's almost like, it reminds me of the same advice that Andy Stump gave to us when we had him on the podcast a number of episodes. And I talked to him in person about this. And he was talking about when guys are going through their basic, through budge training, right? And they're going through Hell Week and stuff like that. You're not worried about anything else other than the moment, right? You're trying to keep your world small. So if you try to expand out and think about the ramifications, it can seem overwhelming. But if you just think about the fact that I'm just going to try to take one more step, or I'm just going to try to like move just a little bit further, or in your case, I'm just going to try to last another 5 minutes and not smoke whatever, you know what I mean? Like those kinds of things maybe could be helpful to you. But again, I would probably, if I were you and I was trying to do this, I would go search out as many resources as I could and do my best. But again, I think that if you look at it and sort of bring it back a little bit, even like when I detox off caffeine, for instance, if I go a while and I haven't, when I stop using caffeine, by stop drinking coffee, there will be this urge in me that says, I need it. I want it. And then I'll even start, my mind starts to rationalize why I have to have it. Oh, I can't write as well, or I can't speak as well if I don't have caffeine in me. I can't do this as well. It's super weird. Our body's chemical dependencies. Now, this goes away only after a couple of days. It's nothing like cigarettes. But again, I'll just say, okay, I need to just last another 20 minutes, or I need to go on a walk, or I need to go do something. I need to do something to take up my time. But I can't shame you, because we all have our thing, right?
Absolutely.
We all have struggles that we have. And so it's not something to be ashamed of. It's just something to look at and say, this is a chance to grow stronger. Like this is a struggle you're having. Everybody's got struggles, and it's something that sucks. It's something that's got a grip on you, but it's also a chance where you can overcome this. And if you overcome it, you'll become a stronger person because of it. And it's something that can even help other people by the information that you gain by going through it. And so I encourage you 100% to do it for your health and for your long-term health, and even think about your family, because again, you know what's going to happen if you continue to do it. Nothing good's going to come from it. My mother she passed away due to smoking. I mean, it is what it is. We know what the ramifications are. And to make that slow, day by day, minute by minute journey of not doing it anymore. But best of luck with you, brother.
Yeah, it's any kind of, like, I'm detoxing off coffee, right? Or caffeine. I'm actually doing decaf.
Yeah.
So I've had some days where I've been like really tired, but like you kind of get past it. I mean, you kind of, it's just, I think that, I've had family members. My wife's got some family members. They're pretty heavy smokers. Have tried to quit, and they've had some other medical issues. And I think the thing that helped them, that helps the most is like, you have to have a good support system, and you also have to change your environment. So like, if there's any way you can like make sure that you don't have any cigarettes in the house, it's just a way to kind of make it a little more difficult. You make it as hard as you can, like, like lock up your cigarettes in like 3 different, I don't know, but it's just changing your environment. It's one of those things, because you're gonna have moments of like, we all do, like, man, I don't want to eat poorly, but there's that chocolate. I want to eat that chocolate. It's just, if it's not in the house, it's a lot harder to jump on that. But like, smoking is like you said, you've had some family stuff, and I've had some family stuff with smoking. It's just one of those things, like, I don't know. It's hard to comprehend the kind of, like, even coffee, right? Caffeine has such a pull on you, but smoking is probably that much
more.
Well, and you see like health, like the people's health decline drastically, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, this is a simple thing, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not.
It's so, like, because I think there's a social aspect, there's like an emotional aspect to it. Like, what do people do? Oh, I'm gonna eat, and I'm gonna go have my cigarette, or I'm gonna get up, have my coffee. It's like I'm stressed out, I'm gonna go have a cigarette. It's just like one of those things. It's like you kind of incorporate with these, like, I don't know, like,
well, and it's the idea that, again, if you like, Andrew Huberman goes into this idea with dopamine. So if you get dopamine from our addictions, and when you don't get the dopamine, you may not physically feel pain, but your body perceives it as pain. And it's even like you're changing the environment. That was something that, like, years ago when I stopped watching porn, I was like, I don't want to do this. I was like, I don't like this. Like, it's like but for some reason I want to do it. Right.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to, so for a while, my computer was always in a public setting with people. So I was like, there was no chance for me to do it, because it's like, I'm always around people. And then eventually, once that grip is broken and you don't do it for a certain amount of time, then you don't have that urge to do it anymore.
Yeah. We all have our vices. I mean,
for sure.
Mine's probably the phone. I find myself on my phone more than I want to be. And it's just and it's just, and it's hard. So that's something that's hard for me, because it's one of those things where I use it for work.
I use it for work. I do. You do.
But it's like, I can't just avoid it altogether, because I do have to use it for stuff. But yeah, it does make it tough. We had something from William Mann. Let's go and jump into this one real fast. He says, I love the wrestling for BJJ videos. I tried them in rolls, but folks are super defensive and just play patty cake. Any tips to improve execution?
Yeah. So what I would do, William, is I would get a friend for like open mat or after class, or whenever you have a moment, like, to do so, and you got to get the reps in. That's the biggest thing. The reps are really important for pulling the trigger. If they're just playing patty cake, then another thing to focus on is getting control of their grips. and really working on good hand fighting. And don't even worry so much about the takedowns. Just worry about one hand fighting, getting the grips that you want for your takedowns. So like, let's say for instance, if you're watching that series and I show that, that inside that arm drag, I'm just as an example, this may not be the one that you like, but I show that arm drag with that weird alternate grip. That, which by the way, I love that grip, but it's kind of weird for some people, have never played it before. But again, you're playing with that alternate grip. Then what you could do is you could try to find a way to put yourself in that position with just those grips, and then read the person's body and just get used to reading their body and get used to seeing the position and being there over and over again and getting used to hand fighting. Those are the two biggest thing. If you can hand fight really well and you can control the grips, then you can put yourself in position and they will be playing patty cake, but you'll be dominating that game of patty cake. And then if you get good at drilling the actual entries of the takedowns, then you can pull the trigger. The entry is like the toughest part, like really going for it. And so what I would suggest that you do is the next time you're rolling, forget about even going for the takedown in like a situation. If you go for it, great, whatever. But really focus on controlling the hands and controlling the hand fighting part first. That's a really good thing to do, because that's a lot of times what I do. Like when I'm rolling with someone, if I'm thinking about going for a takedown, I'm not even worried for the takedown at first. I'm worried about getting to the grips that I need for that takedown first, and then I worry about the takedown. If I can't get to those grips, the takedown is not even in my mind yet. It's like if you're going to go to college, you got to go to your 101 class before 102. Okay. So like 101 is your hand fighting and grip fighting. You got to do that first. You have to fight for the grips that you need. Then we worry about the next thing. And like going for your entry, that's your 102 class. That's when you make the next step. So hand fighting first, worry about that. And that would be my suggestion to you, brother.
All right. Oh, hang on.
Soon it's the future.
Oh, there we go. Right there. All right. It says gym owner accused me of going too hard and tried to humiliate me in class. Yet the instructor says I'm one of the most controlled roles in the class. I'm ticked and want to say something. What do I do?
So let me ask this, Mr. Future or Mrs. Future. It's not really gender specific. You said a gym owner. Are we talking about your gym owner? Because you're saying a gym owner accused you of going too hard, tried to humiliate you, but yet your coach says you're controlled. Are these two different people? Like, will you block that?
I just tried. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is the gym owner, are they the gym owner at that gym and then you have a coach underneath you, or did you travel to a gym and then something like that happened? Like who are those people? Two different people. So tell me, are they at the same gym, or are they at a different, same gym or different gym? I'm just curious. He just went both.
Oh, he did. Okay. Let's see. Two different people. I think I feel like it's the same gym, but I wonder if the gym owner trains. I assume they do, but
possibly. Yeah.
But sometimes it can, different.
So it really doesn't matter. I'm just curious, but here's what I'll say to you. So this is what I always do. Same gym. Okay, great. So here's what I would say, and this is what I always do. If there's someone that's kind of in a confrontational situation like this, here's would be my advice to you. If they say that you're going too hard, right, then you basically, again, and this is where you have to be very controlled, because if you get combative, this is going to fall apart really quickly. Ask them, like, what did I do? You said I went too hard. Can you tell me how? And you can say like the coach says, I'm very controlled. Can you help me? Cause I don't want to be reckless. I don't want to hurt anybody. Can you tell me what I did wrong? Whatever. And basically bring attention to the fact, like, you're asking. And again, all you're trying to do is get that person to think, because here's what happens a lot of times. And I have been guilty of this in the past. And so I know, right? Again, I'm speaking from stupidity in my own self. Sometimes someone can get the best of them. If it's a higher belt or it's a coach or whatever, someone gets the best of them, right? And then they, in their mind, will rationalize it. This guy's going too damn hard. What the hell's wrong with him? Even though it's like, you just got caught, bro. Like, it's a roll. Just because that person's a white belt or a blue belt, and while you're a blue or brown or whatever it might be, like, why is that? Like, that shouldn't bother you. And so sort of stepping back, I've had students, this is how I learned this. My students would ask me a question like, hey, Chewy, like, what happened here? What went wrong? Whatever, right? Yeah. So exactly. He's a purple, you're a blue. He's a purple, you're blue. He got insecure. He got butthurt about it. I can almost guarantee that's what happened. Again, going back to the self-esteem thing, he's looking at training as a zero-sum, I've got to win game. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. We're training, right? Training doesn't matter. We can lose in training. It's okay. It's training. If you're in a competition, it matters. If you're training, we're just training. So, but I would ask him if he gets rough on you again, say, hey, bro, like you can even stop. Say, hey, man, like you seem like you're angry. Is everything okay? Like, what did I do wrong? Can you explain it to me? Because obviously if there's something there, then you can say, can you tell me what's going on? And that'll have to get him to articulate what actually happened and what you did. A lot of times people can't give you a good answer to that. And it sort of brings up the fact that they're full of shit, right? That's kind of the reason why you ask a question, and you're doing it in a way where you're not accusing them of anything. You're asking them, and you let them come to their own conclusions. Now, he may give you some sort of advice or something that happened, and maybe it's useful, but I would say, like, hey, what was I doing? Because the other coach says I'm very controlled. So if you could tell me what I was doing that wasn't controlled, I'll try to my best to work on it. And then you're basically diffusing the situation by not coming at it combatively. So that would be my suggestion for you, bro.
Awesome. Chewy, we'll do a couple more.
Go one up there. There's Kelly right up there.
Yep.
Just up right there. Yeah. Just go
yep.
Going
up right here. It's the women's. Yep. All right, here we go. Kelly says, what are ways to increase attendance for women in gi and no gi classes? Our women's only self-defense grows every so often, but the interest in co-ed jiu-jitsu is not necessarily there.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, one thing is that I would ask you, Kelly, by the way, hope you're doing well. Hope you and PJ are doing well. And I'll give you some answers in just a second, but I'm curious as to right now in your women's self-defense class, are you guys rolling? Are they rolling a bunch? And so I'm curious to know if you guys are rolling. So the reason why I asked that is because I've seen sometimes where there's self-defense programs and like they don't roll in the self-defense programs. And so then like the idea of going to a co-ed class where they roll and train is kind of intimidating. Right. But that said, in the classes that I've had with our women, like one of my students, Madison, she runs the women's class, and the women's class has grown a ton. And in turn, we've also gotten a lot of women that have trained in our co-ed classes, mostly situational rolling. Cool. And so we've had a lot of people grow. That those classes have grown. A lot of people come over. Here's another question. Does the head of, so first off, is the head of that women's self-defense class, are they a female? And does that female, do they also come over to the co-ed classes and train? And the reason why I ask these questions is because, again, it's always going to start from the leader up. So basically humans very much are like, we're little ape creatures, like we're like monkey see, monkey do. And so with that, like if the main coach of the women is not going over and rolling, they're probably not going to follow suit and do the same thing because they're like, well, she's not doing it, I'm not doing it. But the one thing is you're not going to always get everybody coming over to some women. It's Brian, he coached. Okay, so cool. So there you go. So, okay. So here's some ideas. One, you're a female that goes over and rolls in the co-ed classes, and you roll with anybody and you're super tough. You could become partially an advocate to say, hey guys, come roll. And you may already be doing this, but again, you stick with them. Come roll with us. Come on and roll with us, right? Just come watch a class one day. Come do technique and just check it out, right? And even maybe, Brian, like one of the things, like this is something that I had to do with some of my beginners. I had a bunch of beginners in my white belt classes who were too nervous to go do the intermediate classes where we're rolling a little bit more and it's a slightly more advanced, in air quotes, advanced. And so I had to tell them, I was like, listen, guys, everyone in this room right now, because I taught class like last year, I was like, you guys need to come over to these other classes too. You're fine for them. You're ready for them. Trust me, we would love to have you over there. And some of them like use that as a chance. Okay, like I need to get over there, right? Because Chewy said it's okay. And so I would think that from your standpoint, like having Brian or you and whoever else does it be advocates, like come on over with us, guys, or even like kind of make it like help them out. Say if someone agrees to come over there. Tell them, say, hey, listen, if you're going to be there on a Monday, I'll be there on a Monday too. We'll partner up. Because again, a lot of times, anytime we go into an unknown situation, having something that's known to latch onto kind of helps us. And so if you go into a situation where if you can get one of the women to try the class, do the class with them for that day. But again, it's one of those things where no matter how many women are in your women's self-defense only or women's only class type thing, you're never going to get 100% of them coming to the co-ed classes. It's just one of those things where it's not super attractive for women to go get sweat on with a bunch of big burly dudes who might stink, because we stink or whatever.
Yeah.
But I would just keep encouraging them forward, keep encouraging them to come over, and showing them that it's completely okay, that no one's going to kill them or hurt them or whatever like that. And if you can get one of them to come over, let them know, hey, like, I'll be your partner for that day, that kind of thing, to try to help them in that situation. That's been something that's happened a lot, where if one of our females that's in the women's only class says, hey, I'm going to be there, like, they'll come over to the women's only or to the co-ed class, and they'll partner up with someone. They'll partner up with that person just to kind of help them out a little bit. And that seems to help out a bit. So,
all right, sure. Let's do a quick, easy one.
Okay.
Prediction: Gordon Ryan versus Felipe Pena.
Gordon.
So, I think it's going to be interesting, but yeah, I agree.
So Gordon, man, I mean, the thing is that they have the last time they competed was 4 years ago?
5.
Was it 2017?
I believe so.
I think it was 2017 because Pena beat him. Pena beat him like twice around the time. Yeah, he's beaten him twice. And so, again, those were good wins. But at the same time, that's 5 years. And, in that 5 years, Gordon he's grown a lot as a grappler, and he looks like a friggin' animal. Now, at the end of the day, you never know, because styles make matches. I mean, like, it's like a weird thing, because, like, say Felipe lost to Tex, right? Tex got out there and caught him very quick, right? And it's one of those things where, it is what it is.
How much strategy do you think plays into it? Like, because there was an interview and I listened to it, and Felipe Pena said that, well, I'm better at Gordon this and this and this, but he's better at leg locks. It's like, do you think Gordon will go leg locks, or do you think Gordon's going to just, like, because he heard that, he's going to pass his guard, mount him?
Who knows?
Take his back.
Who knows? It's an exciting thing to see, because it's one of those things where that's an exciting matchup for the simple fact that Gordon looks like almost like, I mean, he gets pushed in some matches sometimes, but for the last couple of years, he's looked pretty solid, I mean, and he hasn't had any real tough, challenging matches for the last little bit. Granted, he hasn't gone up against, like, some of the guys he's gone. Some of the guys have been, like, really top level. Some of the guys haven't. It's been intermixed, right? But, like, he's had some tough matches over the years, like when he went against, like, Patrick Gaudio at, I think, was it the Worlds or whatever. That was a really close one. Obviously with Pena, he had a tough match. The match that he had with Barboza was challenging for him until he sort of took the lead towards the end and then put him in the choke or whatever.
Yeah.
But they had a challenging back and forth. So it'll be interesting to see Gordon up against a top level competitor who, is around the same weight, same size, and who has wins against him before, because we haven't really seen him challenge in a long time. And so that's a compelling thing. So
yeah, I think Gordon takes it.
But I think Gordon will probably win.
But yeah, that's a really great point. Like, the caliber of people, like some have been, like, last second replacement. Like, he went against Couch. And Jacob is awesome.
Jacob's
but
a young
Jacob is
guy,
not the same size,
No.
dude. Gordon's like 240 and Jacob's probably 200. Like, they're different. It's different size.
He went against Wagner. Wagner's very good, but Wagner's also a bit smaller.
It'll be interesting to see, but I think Gordon's he's on a 16 matches he's won in a row, and all submissions, 16 submissions in a row. So it'd be very interesting. But you're right though. Like, the level of grappler he's going against is up there. I mean, he's probably one of the best.
And to answer Aaron's question, Aaron asks, what if Gordon loses? Will it shut him up? No, of course it's not going to shut him up. I mean, the thing is regardless of whether he wins or loses, he's still one of the best grapplers that's ever walked the face of the planet, right? That doesn't change. That's cemented. He's already done some things that are, like, amazing. So, I mean, whether you like the character that he puts out or not, that's regardless of the skill. But the fact is, it comes down to the fact that people pay attention to it. It's like, you see these, like, for instance, this is something that I've noticed recently. Again, as much as I'm on the internet, I come into my little neck of the woods, my little world, and that's where I play. But I don't really go out too far. But the other day, like, I guess got targeted something, and there's all these dudes who it's like I guess it's like alpha male stuff. Like, it's like these dudes are, like, pounding their chest, and they're, like, smoking cigars, and they're, like, just whatever.
What do you mean targeted you?
Well, it's like it put it in front of me. Like,
okay.
Basically the algorithm said, hey, you might want to watch this. I'm like, I don't want to watch this garbage. It's like, when I think about the most, like, masculine dudes, I think about the dudes that like like fought in World War II, fought for civil rights, like dudes that fought tyranny and bad stuff. Like those were badass masculine dudes, and they had their flaws, of course. Yeah. But like those dudes, it wasn't about chest pounding. It was about like doing the right thing, taking care of your family, like serving like something higher than yourself. It wasn't about like, hey, look at the crap that I have, or like I'm gonna bang 20 women or whatever. Like that, like it's like I just don't get it. So it's
that
like
appeals to,
but here's what it is. It's a character.
Yeah,
it's all it is. It's a character, and we're in a world right now where everybody's fighting for attention. And so the more outlandish and ridiculous you get, the better, right? It's like Liver King.
That's what I just thought of. You're saying that, I'm just thinking
he's a character.
Liver King, yeah.
I mean, like Liver King, like the dude's has such an incredibly impressive physique. I mean, the guy looks like he's etched in stone.
He's 45.
I mean, he looks amazing. Like there's nothing you can talk about, but like
it's the primal lifestyle.
But the whole thing is just, it's like I feel like I'm watching a pro wrestler from the 80s. It's like it's that larger than life, over the top kind of persona.
He's dialed it in, man.
Dialed it in. And so yeah, you see these people where like a lot of people, now it's become this thing where everybody's getting for attention, and so everybody just keeps, doing stuff like, trying to like get attention. So they'll become more and more outrageous and ridiculous. And so, yeah, like it doesn't matter. It's like, as long as people keep paying attention, they'll keep doing it. So that's it. So,
all right. This is actually a really good question. And this is maybe for some people that are newer to jiu-jitsu. And it's from Small 1995. It says, Small. I just started jiu-jitsu, had a trial week at one gym, and going to check out another gym on Monday. Any tips for what to look for when choosing your gym? We actually had a student,
Kada.
Yep, Kada, who is awesome, tough practitioner, and she bounced around at a couple different gyms, and she settled on that's the Derby City. She did the PGF qualifier, did really well. And she said some things about the gym, and just kind of I don't know. I've got some ideas because I've come from a different gym.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll wrap up on this one. So Kada basically tried like 14 different gyms in the area. I didn't even know there were 14.
Is that what
it was? Like something like that. Something crazy. She came to our gym almost immediately. And she told me she was going to try some other gyms. I was like, yeah, go try them. And like, she was telling me about some of these gyms that like she was trying. I was like, where are these gyms? I was like, I've never heard of these gyms, And she eventually came back. And she came back because she felt like the jiu-jitsu was really good. And she also felt like she connected with the people. Your reasons could change, but I think that one of the most important things about jiu-jitsu, one of the things that really, that I think is something that maybe is underappreciated when compared to technique, is the community aspect. We live in a world where everybody communicates through these damn phones, and it's the worst thing ever because you don't have real communication, right? You don't develop real relationships, or you can develop decent relationships over them in some measures, but not typically through social media, right? So everybody communicates through these phones. They don't see each other. And there's something about the fact that the humans have not evolved past our, I need to see you in person sort of aspect. I mean, like when we get into groups, there's a certain thing. You can watch a concert, and like people start waving and moving in the same direction at the same time, even though nobody said anything, right? They're just doing it. They're going with it. Humans are meant to be in groups of people. It's the way that we work. We're these like herd animals, right? So with that, I think that there's this powerful thing where a lot of times religion is kind of gone in a lot of cases for a lot of people. We don't have that communal aspect that we used to. We don't necessarily have big family get-togethers all the time like we used to at some point. And a lot of people lack that connection to groups of people. And I think it's such an important thing to have in your life. And so I think that along with the technique, making sure all that stuff's good, I would definitely make sure that you vibe with the group. If you don't feel comfortable around the people, I don't think you're going to stick with it. And I don't think you'll be able to extract all the benefits that you could possibly get from training without that. And so I would make sure that while you're training, make sure you feel comfortable, make sure the training's good. You can look them up online and see if they're legit. And then also make sure, very importantly, I kind of like being here. This kind of feels like a place I want to come back to, because if it doesn't, you're not going to keep training. But if you feel welcome, if you feel like it's a cool place, you're going to want to come back there, and you'll be able to train for a long time and enjoy a lot of those benefits of training. So.
Yeah, I think initially you look at, what's the best gym? If you're like really interested in getting better at jiu-jitsu, you're like, what's the best gym? Where can I get the best training? After you do that for a while, you look for other things. You look for the gym environment, the gym culture. Like, do I love seeing these people on I'm tired, but man, I go in and I train. It's a late night, and you stay after and you have conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Like we'll be done training, and sometimes people head out, but usually a lot of us will stick around. We'll just chat a little bit.
Oh.
Do you enjoy doing that? Like, would you, could you see yourself having a conversation with some of these people? And I think, our gym, it's almost like insulated from a lot of the craziness, with all the stuff going on in the world. It kind of like it's a place of for most of us support. We support each other, and kind of there we can communicate with each other. And I was talking to me and Adam from the videos and stuff. Is me and Adam went to middle school together and went to high school together, and like he's probably one of the people from high school that I see the most, and I get to keep up with him. And then we do that through jiu-jitsu. Yeah. We get to connect, we try to choke each other out, and then we hug, and I'm so happy I get to see him at least once a week. And I get to see Chewy and some of the people like that I'm closest to are from the gym.
Yep.
And I think that's where things that's where it kind of moves past jiu-jitsu a little bit. I mean, jiu-jitsu is like the key, like the center, but then all that stuff around it, I drive 45 minutes to the gym when I've got like a gym 5 minutes away. And I do that. I'll do it without hesitation, and I'll continue to do it because of the gym environment we have in the culture. And that's one of the probably the most important thing for me now, training as long as I have, is making sure I like the people I'm around. Cause like I said, you don't like doing stuff you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. You're like, I'm not going to do it if I don't like it. And for me, like, you got to love the training and you got to love the people.
That's it.
So
guys, appreciate you guys being here today.
Well, let's shout out our sponsors real fast.
Quick shout out to the sponsors.
Let's look at the numbers drop.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, he's talking about the sponsors. Guys, we got to get the hell out of here.
Hey, the sponsors are huge for us, man. They support us, and they help us kind of put this podcast on.
They do. And also, guys, I share this with you. Anything that I ever promote, I share this with you 100%. It's a product that I use. So nothing that I ever share is something I don't use, because the thing is like, just kind of going back to that community aspect, people watching this, a lot of them were my students. And so if I sold some bullshit, then my students I'm going to have to see my students, and I'm going to like, oh yeah, sorry about that. Like what? So again, I can't share stuff that I don't, besides my own integrity, right? Like I can't do it. But that said, I do like the products such as Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web makes amazing CBD products. I'm a big fan of CBD. I became a big proponent for it after using it back in 2000. I think it was 2016, 2017. I was surprised. A lot of times I hear people talk about CBD oil. I thought it was snake oil, like whatever. I used it. I was like, this is pretty cool stuff. And I've been using it, ever since, off and on. I'll do my time off of it, just like I do with caffeine. But I do notice a discernible difference in terms of recovery. And I know recovery is a big thing for a lot of us in training. The better we recover, the better we train. And especially, I'm 37 now. As we get older, any little tweak or trick that we can add into the mix for recovery is a beneficial thing. CBD is one of them that I use. And so again, if you guys want to check them out, check out Charlotte's Web. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off. And it's a great deal on some of the products. Also, Epic Roll. A lot of you guys were asking my favorite jiu-jitsu gear. My favorite no-gi gear is made by Epic Roll. I love his no-gi shorts. I love the rash guards that he makes. They're high quality. And I'm also a big fan of his t-shirts. You can check his stuff out at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. And guys, if you want to get groomed up, if you're a male out there, you're a man, if you want to get groomed up, whether it be for your beard, your balls, or whatever you got going on, you can check out Manscaped. I've used almost everything that they make. Is they'll send me stuff. Here, try this out. Everything from their like body washes, their colognes, their trimmers, the whole deal. Everything's a high quality product. And again, I know they are everywhere right now. I didn't realize this until recently because I don't watch TV, but I was when I was at the ER actually, getting my lip checked out and seeing what the hell was going on and making sure I didn't have a stroke. I was watching like regular TV, and I was like, I saw a Manscaped commercial with Pete Davidson. I was like, oh, there they are.
There you go.
And they are everywhere, but they do make a really good product. And a lot of you guys ask about how I trim my beard up or whatever. I trim my beard up with a Manscaped trimmer. And again, it's a good trimmer. Like, again, it's nice even for like Jess, if she was here earlier, she trims all my like my carpet.
Sure, that man.
My back off and stuff.
That's right. I use it on my head too. It's kind of nice, convenient. In the shower, you can do it in the shower too.
Because waterproof.
Yeah. It is waterproof. So it's got a light.
That's right.
Very important.
So underrated. You can check it out at manscaped.com. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order, and you get free shipping. It's a great deal. Also, guys, if you want to get some exclusive content and get a ton of stuff that we've developed over the years for the podcast with different guests and stuff like that, and support the podcast, you can do so directly by going to patreon.com/the Chewjitsu Podcast. And you can do that. And guys, I also give away a free set of jiu-jitsu ebooks. One is on game plan guide, one is on how to drill, and one is on some at-home study ideas. You can get all of those at my website by going to chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. And so hopefully that helps you guys out. So again, all that stuff there. If you guys missed some of the beginning, it was a fun one. Go check it out, whatever. But I had a good time with you guys today. Hope you had a good time as well. And hopefully we'll talk to you guys next time. And if you don't already, because I know some of you guys are YouTube followers, if you don't already, check out the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, even on YouTube. We have lots of episodes like this. So if you enjoyed it, go check it out. And appreciate you guys. Talk to you next time.